across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. Welcome. It is the home of common sense. So he's at it again. President Trump has threatened to bomb Iran back to the Stone Ages if they regret his ceasefire. Following a crass social media post on Sunday, the president has warned that he will destroy all of Iran's power stations and bridges within 4 hours. The ultimatum expires at 1 a.m. UK time. Grab the popcorn, kids. Also this afternoon, Border Forces testing facial recognition drones equipment with military-grade radar-enabled cameras over the channel to identify migrant smugglers up to half a mile away. The Home Office aims to increase successful prosecutions under this technology. It rather depends, of course, if you have those responsible on an existing database. I think I've got that about right. We can see what's coming at 1,000 paces here. And as you've been hearing with Julia, despite controversy, Kanye West is set to headline London's Wireless Festival this July. He said he would be grateful to meet the UK Jewish community. Oh, that's nice of him. Festival Republic's managing director confirmed West was recently granted a UK performance visa. I have no clue how. Do you? We'll have details on that as well. Everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news right here on Talk. So here's a question, a serious question. I think we're down really to the wire on the level of seriousness that this is being dealt with. I know, look, when you kick your quilt off your legs in the morning and get out of bed, laid there with a piece of toast between your toes, ready for the day to unfold, I think it's reasonable to say that most of us are not usually thinking, I wonder how it's going in Iran. But, of course, the implications of Iran span wide. We can talk, of course, the whole of the Middle East, but we already know of the massive knock-on effect that it's had economically over here. And this is essentially week one in that respect. This could get a whole lot worse. Can Trump bring peace to the Middle East? 0344 499 1000. But there is growing concern among Trump fans and ranks. Let's look at it like this. I want to take you back to 2003, the second Iraq war, when America and the UK were decimating Baghdad. Do you remember Mohammed Saeed al-Shahaf? You might go, who? Who's he? He was better known as Comical Ali, of course. He was the Iraqi information minister under Saddam Hussein. And while the UK and the US were pounding the place to smithereens, Saddam Hussein wanted to put a different spin on things. So out comes Comical Ali, who would regularly give press conferences to the West to tell them how well Iraq and Saddam were doing. Let's have a reminder of what it sounded like.
Let's go listen in to what the Minister of Information is saying.
We have slaughtered about 3/4 of them so far, and there is some remnants of them left. They said that they have entered Baghdad with 65 tanks into the center of the city. And I'm telling you, this is not true.
Yeah, this is not true. But it was true. They even released the best bits of Comical Ali. It was a regular grift on an almost daily basis of events as interpreted by Saddam Hussein. Today, we have Comical Donny. Who would have thought that an American president would be playing a similar game?
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
Back to the Stone Ages. He's repeated this one a number of times now. And, of course, this was, you know those dramatic moments from a film where there's a sort of general or a senior politician goes rogue, ignores protocol, grabs the microphone and starts threatening everyone within about a 5-mile radius. It's kind of a bit of that. So Easter Sunday, while the rest of the world was hiding chocolates and going to church, Donald Trump was on his Truth Social telling Iran to open the effing strait, you crazy studs, or you'll be living in hell. He then signed it off with Praise be to Allah. He was taking the shizzle, of course. On Easter, this is on Easter, from the President of the United States. The Pope, at the same time, was calling for peace. Trump was calling for power cuts. He then doubled down, of course, at that press conference, declaring that Iran would have no bridges, no power plants, back to the Stone Ages, delivered with the casual energy of a man ordering a well-done steak. This is disturbing many people. And, of course, just days earlier, he told the nation that America didn't need the Strait of Hormuz. So apparently America are now threatening to bomb their way into a waterway that apparently they don't actually need. Which one is it? The plot hasn't just been lost, it's been blown up, along with potentially Iran's power grid. Has Donald Trump completely lost it here? Or, and I'm asking this question evenly, or is he playing a genius game waiting to pounce? And before you start sending messages about Trump derangement syndrome, let me just remind you, there are a growing number of Republicans, and I'm not talking about the middle-of-the-road Republicans. I'm not talking about the Republicans who could be, on any other day, maybe a Democrat. I'm talking about the greater right-wing contingent of the Republican Party who are not very happy. Former military personnel who know the theatre of war well, not very happy. Even those in his current circle, not very happy and think Mr. Trump should take a lie down. Why do you think J.D. Vance has essentially been put out to graze over the last few weeks? He hates all this stuff. And you'd hardly call him a die-hard lefty, a socialist, a liberal. You wouldn't apply any of that to him. So which one is it? Can Trump bring peace to the Middle East here? The bit that I think overarchingly I'm not fully understanding, because he's now doubling down on this threat. Till 1 a.m. tonight or tomorrow morning, Iran have got to sort this thing out. Otherwise, he's going to blow the place apart. Every bridge, every energy, so everything is going to be flattened. We could do it in hours, he said. Now, you can obviously argue it's not a very presidential way to do things. You know, even right-wing presidents, the Bushes, obvious ones, Reagan, etc., wouldn't take that kind of tone. It doesn't feel professional to many. But the bit I don't understand is that if we want, we being most of the West, an uprising by the Iranian people who take the place over and make it better again, get their old team back into a secular Iran, if that is the aim, I don't think you're going to achieve that if you blow the entirety of the nation to literally smithereens, where there's nothing. You couldn't start another country. With America's help, naturally, you could give it a go, but you take the point. Can Trump bring peace to the Middle East? And it's quite telling how many countries are not in support of what is happening, how many Republicans are not in support of what is happening, how many qualified military personnel are not in support of what is happening, and how many people, if the truth be known, within his own cohort are not best pleased with what is happening. How are you seeing this? And yes, it does have an effect on this country. We are tacitly involved in this, in a military sense, tacitly involved. But, of course, the knock-on effects are greater, economically and otherwise. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. Your thoughts on that. You can message, by the way, 87222. Let's get a word on this with Oscar Redrop, former number 10 advisor, with us to look at this story and the other big stories. Oscar, I mean, this is interesting. We know Trump does go off-piste. We know he's not conventional. He doesn't play by the usual kind of presidential rules. He doesn't read from some pre-prepared press statement written by someone else. He shoots from the hip. Whatever's on his mind, he says it. So even baking that into the equation, which is why many people quite like him, there is still a little bit of a worrying question mark currently over the American administration. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anyone pays too much mind to the language Trump uses. And so, yeah, some people will pearl clutch at, the tweet over the weekend and, all that bombastic, very Trumpian language. But that's not the issue. For Trump supporters, conservatives, those that think the initial foray into Iran, it was the right thing to do. It's the strategy. That's the only concerning thing. And often, the lessons that we learn with Trump is don't really pay much detail or mind to what he says. Watch what he does and the results he gets. That's the thing we concentrate on. And this is starting to slip into, we're not sure about the results that are coming here, and we're very, very concerned. He's in a very fragile position, I would say, because he has set numerous deadlines. I think this is kind of the fourth or fifth one now. And he's kept pushing it back. He's been, kind of threatening the brink and then coming back from it and threatening it again and coming back from it. And, at what point does he start to not be taken particularly seriously by Iran? And at what point do his political capital, if you like, amongst his own ranks and supporters, does that really start to diminish when they go, you can't keep threatening and then pulling back from the brink? I think that the real problem, potentially, and I imagine that's why, even those Republicans who are getting pretty nervy on this, it actually comes down to domestic stuff, right? I mean, United Airlines have had to cancel flights. Fuel prices are through the roof, and this is in America, right? And that's not immaterial. The truckers and the working class Americans who view Trump as an icon and a hero, and for many reasons up until now, rightly so. It's them that are being hit by this. As they go to the pump, for example. And so you don't want to slip in. The people around Trump don't want to slip into a place where he is almost betraying the exact working class that, quite rightly in many ways, put him on that pedestal. So it is very, very, very tricky times for Trump now. What I would say, though, is that time and time and time again, almost without fail, Trump has a way of getting the desired outcome and result. Yeah. And yes, there is chaos in that process, but he does seem to get things over the line.
Let me just read you what Trump has just put out 7 minutes ago on his Truth Social platform. And he's kind of gone further on this one. He's written this: a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter and less radicalized mind prevails, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight, one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Now that's fascinating, a bit disturbing. I think we can say, Oscar, as well. We could argue slightly inaccurate. We have complete and total regime change. I'm not sure that's actually true.
No, that's not quite accurate. And I mean, the stakes that he is putting up there, the stakes, when you read a post like that, could not be higher. And I think that is obviously a very, very, very dangerously high risk way to go about things. It is because, as I said, either he follows through on that.
Yeah.
I mean, let's think about the ramifications of that, or he doesn't. And yet again, he is in a really, really fragile and actually quite weak place at the moment. And this is, I have obviously no insider knowledge here, and this is almost potentially wishful thinking. Or he is he behind the scenes, and the people around him are very certain that he is going to get, that kind of inverted commas victory, and that Iran are going to kneel to even demands that he can claim victory on. Just he can just get over that line.
Yeah. That
he is, he's speaking in such definitive terms, knowing that he is going to get the inverted commas victory that he needs. Otherwise, I mean, and there are things I really admire about what Trump's done in America, and the way he's connected to the working classes. But that is scary stuff. Talking on those terms, scary stuff.
A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. But of course, as you allude to there, Oscar, you know, if that's what it takes, you know, he knows that it's going to take that for any kind of action. Even a slight response from Iran could be seen as a victory for Trump.
Yeah, and that's not like that is why we have to take slightly sometimes our very kind of you know, at times as a politics, not you and me, in, but like the kind of a metropolitan kind of sensibilities where we kind of like think about who he's actually negotiating with here. You know, like sometimes you have to talk their language, and that's something Trump does quite well. Actually, he talks in their language, which is incredibly destructive and extreme sometimes. And he will get on that level with them. And so, you know, wishful thinking, but we have to hope that that's his style of communication in these circumstances, and that is what he will hope communicates to them. And that's, as you said, that's what it's going to require to get into the table.
Oscar, stay with us. Lots more to come, which is why we asked the question, by the way, can Trump bring peace to the Middle East? So these are all highly unconventional tactics and speeches, and the way of addressing this, of course, overarchingly, one of the problems that Trump also has more back at home than anywhere else is that this was the president that was never going to get involved in foreign wars. And now we're in the middle of a thumping, horrendous and very damaging and destabilizing war. The way out for Trump, of course, is a victory, which would show a wide look. You see what I did there? I know I had to say some bad things. I know I had to say some tricky stuff, but look what's happened. We've got peace in the Middle East. That's the line he needs. Will he get it? Can he bring peace to the Middle East? 0344 499 1000.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Don in Chelmsford says, we've gone from Sleepy Joe to Crazy Donald. Or have we, Don? Because could this be? I keep talking about 4D chess. Is that what Trump is doing? Is he playing a more kind of complex game, uncomfortable at times, crass, generally speaking, not the kind of thing you'd expect from a president? We're getting a whole civilization will die tonight, he's just said, never to be brought back again, essentially threatening the death of an entire population. But is that the language he needs to speak to bring peace? 0344 499 1000. Oscar Redrop is with us, former number 10 advisor to Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. Oscar, let's move to this one. It's Border Force. They're back with another. It's like Roadrunner, isn't it? They've got another plan. They're going to make this one work. It's called facial recognition drones with military-grade radar-enabled cameras over the channel to try and identify migrant smugglers in small boats. Our Home Secretary, of course, is a massive fan of facial recognition. Here's the evidence.
100 years ago, fingerprinting was decried as curtailing our civil liberties, but today we could not imagine policing without it. I have no doubt the same will prove true of facial recognition technology in the years to come.
Well, here's the problem I see with this one, Oscar. Firstly, as I understand it, I'm no facial recognition expert, never majored in that in any part of my life. But as far as I know, you need an existing database to identify a wrong-un. So the facial recognition fires at a crowd of people, goes bleep, 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 does its funky thing, and goes, oh, look, here's Terry from Calais. And it fires back into a database and it throws up, yeah, he's wanted for people smuggling. So there's that. And there's another point that many others have made. Chris in Wallasey made this point as well. Balaclavas. Oh, we can't hear you, Oscar.
Oh.
Oscar has frozen on the word balaclavas. Are you back with us, Oscar?
I'm back with you. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just amusing the point that balaclavas and a lack of a database might be a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Wallasey, quite near where I grew up. Whoever sent that text is absolutely... Chris, you're absolutely spot on, mate. This is window dressing, I would say. It's window dressing can move you a few degrees to where you want to be, but it's not going to solve any of the ultimate problems. Yeah. We probably don't have, as you said, a really thorough database for this to actually work. It kind of feels like we're going to start putting laser beams on sharks in the channel or something like that. There are, you know,
who doesn't like? That's a boy's dream, isn't it? Wow, I've got a shark with a laser beam.
It honestly feels like that kind of territory. It's a nice little announcement. It's probably a nice to have if we had the infrastructure around it, and actually we did the big grown-up stuff which we're not prepared to do, like leaving the ECHR, you know, detaining, deport, all that kind of stuff. Until we do that, this will only remain window dressing. But I would say, because we bash this government a lot, and often rightly so, I do genuinely believe, and this has not been the case for many Home Secretaries, that our current Home Secretary actually wants to solve this problem. I think there's a mess around her. I think she doesn't have the support amongst her backbenchers or cabinet to do it, but I think she does want to.
Sure. And
so she's probably just trying to be proactive at this moment in time.
Again, you could throw anything at it and it's all worth a go. I don't know what the kind of cost implications are of these devices, which, as I said, are described as recognition drones with military-grade radar-enabled cameras. I mean, this sounds like the tastiest bit of kit money could buy in the drone department. So, I mean, we will see. The bit that nobody can seem to work out as to why, on the French side, why drones aren't flying perpetually over that coast.
Yeah.
I mean, would you not just have them flying all over the place? It can't be that hard to, you know, you can set up my local shopping centre has got a CCTV bay where they, you know, a couple of people sit there all day looking at 100 screens to see if anyone's doing terrible things. I'm pretty sure they could do that over there in Calais.
No, but this is the thing. This is the ultimate elephant in the room. And I know we have that bit of a joke of a returns policy with France, but the French have no incentive to help us out with this. Why would they? You know, the more that we, Keir Starmer, again, I would say the Home Secretary is separate from this, but the more that Keir Starmer has relied on, you know, European EU cohesion, upstream tackling, you know, our mates, you know, the French are going to help us out with it. No, they're not. Yeah. They view it as our problem. And if we're not solving it and we're a soft touch on it, why the hell are they going to help us out? So that has been such an obvious strategic flaw in how this government has gone about in tackling illegal immigration.
Totally fair. Let's move to this. When Labour scraps the two-child benefit cap, workless households will, of course, receive an annual benefit increase of £6,000. The policy will cost an estimated £3.5 billion, funded, of course, by tax increases. Now, didn't Labour promise no more tax for working people? If nobody... there's probably some lefties going, that was never, ever said. Have a listen to this.
All of our plans are fully costed and fully funded. That means no tax rises for working people.
We're not going to be raising tax on working people.
We will not raise taxes on working people.
We're not putting up taxes on working people.
Labour government will not raise income tax, will not raise national insurance contributions and will not raise VAT.
We're not going to increase tax on working people, and that means
that Labour will not be putting up taxes on working people.
But no, we don't think that we should be raising taxes on working people.
There'll be no additional taxes on households under a Labour government.
Let me be absolutely clear, we will not raise tax for working people.
I mean, that memo must have been underlined, written in bold and highlighted. Don't forget to always say working people whenever you're asked about the tax rises, because they felt that was kind of the get-out, Oscar, that they could do anything else and it wouldn't affect it, as if raising employer national insurance doesn't affect working people.
That actually made me... I know there's silly music in the background, and in a slightly detached way, it's quite funny. But just being reminded of that again, those promises, it actually makes you quite angry. The choices that the government have made, and this is the latest example of it, and I don't mean it to sound cold, you know, like any reasonable Brit human being wants those that cannot support themselves at all to have support, right? You know, like we don't want to see people, you know, in destitution and suffering. You know, we've moved on. You know, that's not in our character as a country. But at every point, you know, when it comes to things like the welfare bill, and this is the latest example, at every point, this government has sided with those that don't do and punished those that do. There are working people, and I hate that phrase, and I always thought, who are Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves to tell us who a working person is? But that aside, you know, working people, your listeners and your viewers now, who are probably breaking their backs to get by,
correct,
they will look down the road and they will know the people who, you know, slightly take the mick. They will be getting more support. And as they battle through each and every day, you know, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, doing whatever it takes. And that is the choice this government has made. And it really, 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 really should anger people. And I was not his biggest fan, do not get me wrong, but I always think back to that Rishi Sunak clip, you know, in the debates before the election. He said this was coming, and he was absolutely right.
Bang on. Now, let's finish on this one, Oscar. We mentioned at the beginning the war in Iran and the knock-on effects. We know first they came for our petrol, then they came for our fertiliser, and now the Iranian regime are responsible for a rise in fish and chip costs. This is how bad it's got. Britain's fish and chip shops facing a huge rise. Skyrocketing fuel prices caused by Iran's continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz has meant that the cost of diesel is off the scale. One fisherman in Peterhead said a tank of diesel to trawl for cod and haddock has doubled to approximately £10,000 since the war began. Our battered friends are going up in price again, it seems, Oscar.
It's not a laughing matter. Battered friends was quite funny. Well, all joking aside, this war is going to infiltrate every aspect of our lives ultimately, and it's the same for people across the world and, of course, Americans. If this is a personal message to Donald Trump here, you know, if you endanger a Brit's right to a reasonably priced fish and chips, that's the line. That is the line. And again, being more serious,
it is the line. I would be writing a letter saying a whole civilization could be wiped out tonight if you don't sort this out. And it ain't the Iranians.
No, quite in. But no, all joking aside, this war needs to be drawn to a very, very swift conclusion before it really, really starts injecting ourselves into every cost that we have in our lives, which is hard enough. And again, and it sounds silly, but it actually isn't. A fish and chip weekend, a Friday meal for a lot of families is like the thing that you look for, is the thing that you really, really look forward to. And actually, all joking aside, if that price starts going way up, you just can add that to the list of things in their day-to-day lives that is just a bit more expensive and miserable. So sort it out, Donald.
Sort it out. Listen, Oscar, thank you for helping us sort these things out. Oscar Redrop is former number 10 advisor to Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. Thoughts on what he had to say on a number of subjects there, but in particular the first one, and as we came on air, that latest that latest statement from Donald Trump, talking there about a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, he says, but it probably will. He's threatening absolute Stone Age annihilation to Iran. There would be no uprising on this because there would be no people to uprise, based on his words. 47 years of extortion, corruption and death will finally end, though, he says, if, and this, of course, is predicated on the idea that the Iranian regime, who he's calling smarter and less radicalized minds, prevail, it could end. Donald Trump claims a victory. There's a lot of destruction already. So there's the question. Can Trump bring peace to the Middle East on the back of that? We've got a couple of voices to come on and join us in a couple of moments' time. We're going to be speaking again to Malcolm Nance, former US Navy intelligence officer, and Greg Swenson, chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, with us as well. Keeping it. Lines are open, by the way, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 25 to 2. An awful lot to get through, particularly since we've just come on air that statement from Donald Trump about his plans for Iran inside the next 12 hours. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, he says, but it probably will. Where does this leave the situation? Is this Trump playing what we would call over here a blinder? He knows what he's doing. He's using strong words. He's using their kind of almost medieval language in order to enamor the what is left of the Iranian regime to spring into action. He's going to flatten the place in about 10 hours' time. We'll talk to Greg Swenson, Chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, in just a moment. First, Malcolm Nance, former US Navy intelligence officer, author of The Plot to Betray America, how Team Trump compromised our security and how we can fix it. Malcolm, good to see you again, sir. You will be familiar, now we're on air, of this latest statement from Donald Trump. We can sit here for ages going, that's not very presidential. They don't use the previous ones where he uses the F word, he drops the F-bomb and a few other things, the kind of stuff, going back to the Stone Ages. This is very Trump, but is it, and it's very easy to say, no president talks like this, this is not a good look, it's crass, it's anti-intelligent, it's not the thing to do. However, if it works, it is the thing to do. What's your assessment so far, Malcolm? And good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. You know, I have never in my near 40 years working in, around, and about U.S. intelligence ever seen a more stupid, ridiculous statement ever made by a consumer of intelligence. And here's why. He doesn't consume what we produce in the U.S. intelligence community. This man is completely ignorant of the culture, the language, the people, and their determination. I would have said, hey, you know, if you don't understand that these people there, you could literally nuke them, which is what it sounds like he's threatening. They will still stand at the end of that. I don't know what kind of brinksmanship, as you said, if he's playing blinders here, but this is not going to work. The funny thing is, I worked at a national nuclear command post for a short time when I was in the armed forces. And the first thing that happens is they show you a simulated attack on your hometown. And what you do is you come out from that briefing ardently anti-nuke. You don't talk about it, you don't threaten it. The United States does not use its nuclear arsenal as a bargaining chip against mullahs or others. It's unstated. Donald Trump has now stated it. Here's the kicker. You nuke Tehran, you are not going to get Mashhad, Shiraz, Isfahan, Bandar Khomeini, Bandar Abbas, which comprises a large part of the 93 million people. So someone needs to say, is this a joke or is he threatening genocide? And I'm pretty sure your next guest is going to say, oh, it's just a joke, Trump being Trump. No president has ever done this before, and it's unacceptable.
Is this, however, the definitive changing face of the Middle East, Malcolm? Could we be at a point where it has taken this kind of language? It's crass, it's medieval, it sounds like the thing the Taliban might say. However, that's his point, isn't it? He's speaking their language, he's using their turns of phrase, he's talking in the very same kind of cant and patois that these people would speak in. He's pleading to the insanity of their values.
Yeah, but this is where ignorance and personal prejudice kicks in here. They don't speak like this. Okay, I've lived in that part of the world. I've lived, and fought multiple wars in the Middle East, North Africa, South Asia. They don't speak like this. This isn't medieval, threatening, this is Game of Thrones. It's something that comes from someone's badly written script. They don't understand this because they think that we're supposed to be using the language of culture and civilization.
But they do speak like this, Malcolm, don't they? This is the kind of language. They want to annihilate Israel. They want to annihilate the West. They hate us. They hate you guys. They hate everybody. These are Taliban, ISIS characters. They're bad men. They want to annihilate and control. They speak exactly like this.
Terrorists of which I have fought, written multiple books, including New York Times bestsellers on, we understand that's the language of rhetorical terrorism, right? Iran from 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini, when he came back, first thing out of his mouth, Bag America, right? Death, death to America. That's rhetoric. They have no ability to carry it out. But you're talking a country that has 4,500 atomic bombs where we could put a nuclear weapon into any city in Iran in 23 minutes. And what will change is we will become a global pariah. Every nation in that part of the world will shun us forever. And now this is Donald Trump using what I really suspect is mental illness as foreign policy. The man is demented. He's old. If he thinks that this is funny, all right, he needs to be put out. This is what the 25th Amendment is for. If he thinks this is Nixon's madman policy, it don't work. There are goat herders in Khuzestan, and there are housewives down in, along the coast who don't care about this. They'll still send their sons to fight America out there. This is not a game. And I don't know whether he thinks it's a game, but he's surrounded by morons that thinks it's a game.
Malcolm, we could be sitting here in 24 hours, bearing in mind he's this 1 a.m. deadline. That's the Eastern time date that's been put on it. 1 a.m. our time. And so, what if we were sit here tomorrow and go, oh, it's actually worked? What are you going to say then? It's worked. Look, Donald Trump, he came out with this stuff. The Iranians have gone fair point. The Strait of Hormuz is open. It's back to business. Trump gains a victory. He gets the Nobel Peace Prize. You walk away having to think about that next chapter in your latest book.
Yeah, well, which is my memoir. I'd have to change it dramatically. But, yeah, okay, let's assume 1 second that Iran says, what? They're going to unconditionally surrender, reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz isn't being closed by the Iranians. It's being closed by Lloyd's of London. It's being closed by the insurance companies that so long as the United States is expending every ounce of its military power, they will not insure vessels to go through the SOH. I've been through it in combat. I've been in mines, minefields. I have been in ship-to-ship missile combat and shot down aircraft and blew up oil platforms. That was 40 years ago. It's going to be that way. Geography is why Iran controls the strait, not any will of the people. February 27th, before the United States attacked, the Strait of Hormuz was fully open. Can be open fully again when the United States stops attacking and the war risk goes down. How he intends to do that, I don't know. He needs to find an off-ramp, but kooky crazy talk isn't going to cut it.
Malcolm, very thorough stuff. Passionate stuff too, as ever. Thank you. Malcolm Nance, he is a former US Navy intelligence officer. He knows this terrain. He knows the history. He thinks that Donald Trump's lost the plot. Greg Swenson is chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. Good afternoon to you, Greg. Nice to see you again. He's not pulling any punches there. I mean, he's straight to the point. He believes Donald Trump has a mental illness and the 25th should be employed at this rate because the man has completely lost the plot. What do you say to that point?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of pulling out the 2018 Trump derangement syndrome playbook of the 25th Amendment, and first of all, I appreciate his service to the country, and that's fantastic. My nephew's a naval aviator on the Abraham Lincoln, so he's in harm's way right now. So I really appreciate the men and women who serve their country. But I do think that, there's a couple of points, first of all, it's not going to work was one message. I'm not sure of that. I don't know how Malcolm would know that. He doesn't, the mullahs don't speak like this, or the other, these lunatic fringe leaders in Iran, they definitely speak like that. The big difference is that, the president actually has the power. Yeah. So when he uses bluster, and I appreciate that it is a lot of bluster, a lot of hyperbole, at least, we are in a position to use some bluster, whereas when the mullahs do it, it's kind of, it kind of falls on deaf ears, given they're down to a couple of guys with shoulder fired, heat seekers. And that's why they got lucky on Friday, taking down an Air Force jet. But the other thing, I wouldn't underestimate when he said that there's no ability, that the mullahs use bluster, but they have no ability. Well, that's because we've taken out their nuclear capabilities. That's because we've taken out much of their ballistic missile capabilities. So, but a month ago, they had the ability, and they've used it in the past, and they've killed Americans for a generation, and several generations now, but even recently in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so, this is not a regime that, is powerful anymore, thanks to President Trump. However, they are lunatics, and I think they're suicidal. So I'm not suggesting that this will work. I don't imagine they're going to unconditionally surrender either, because any sane government would, but not these guys. They're lunatics.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know, once upon a time, you, like me, but more so you, because you're an American, Greg, would have looked at the sort of Ronald Reagan school of being a president as as the kind of template for intelligence and decency. The adults were in the room and put him next to Thatcher. It was almost the perfect world. When you look back at that, I want to weep sometimes of how it felt. Very sense. This is now very different. You said to me a couple of years ago, look, you know, the Reagan, that's not the apple pie on the farm. That's gone. We're in a different era now, probably never to return to that other stuff. However, what we have now is somebody very straight talking. That's arguably one of the attractions of President Trump. But for many, and I would even include his own vice president in this, this idea of talking in this way and operating in this way, he did say no more foreign, intervention, of course, is very un-American. It's very unpresidential. Firstly, does that matter now if the job gets done?
So the easy answer is no, it does not matter. And in many respects, in the first term, many of us would say, well, in spite of his bluster or in spite of his unfiltered nature, we've got great outcomes. But I think you can make the argument now that it's in many ways because of his unfiltered nature. He doesn't do it like other presidents. Reagan, while we, all totally respect Reagan, and, but what's funny is President Trump's military, his philosophy is very similar to President Reagan's. It's peace through strength, and once in a while you have to use or demonstrate that strength. And remember when Reagan went to Berlin in '87, the State Department bureaucrats, the permanent blob and bureaucracy in Washington, kept removing his more aggressive statements from his speech, and he kept putting them back in, notably Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That's not something that was considered polite diplomatic speak in 1987. And I think, in many ways, President Trump has just taken it and this is an understatement, but he's taken it to a new level. But I think Reagan was often criticized by the bureaucracy and by the Western media. And so it's refreshing sometimes. Sometimes it goes overboard. I think the hyperbole of wiping out a civilization is just that. It's hyperbole. There's no mention in his comment about using a nuclear weapon. I don't know. That's not something that's, even remotely possible.
Well, he talks about wiping out a whole civilization, Greg, but one might assume it would take something substantial to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of hyperbole, and he wants the oil, by the way. He's not going to wreck that country completely because he might take out some bridges and some power plants, which is pretty common in armed conflict, but he wants the oil.
Just a final point then. Do you think that I think you're right that the hyperbole thing is true. He's not going to let off a nuke in Tehran tonight. Does he just need what looks like a bit of a victory, even if it's a partial kind of standing down or a word from the Iranian regime, so that he can then claim, look, see, I use these words, unconventional as they are, but they've worked?
Yeah, I think there's definitely merit to that argument. And I think that, he's already won from a military perspective. Again, these guys are lunatics and they're suicidal, so I'm not sure they'll do it. Yeah. But I do think that, he's definitely debilitated the regime so that they're not as dangerous as they were. Sure. They're dangerous to their own people, but they're not as dangerous as they were a month ago.
Greg, very thorough stuff from you too. Thank you. Always lovely to see you. Greg Swenson, chairman of Republicans Overseas, feeding into that bigger question. Can Trump bring peace to the Middle East? It's unconventional, it's crass, it's a bit in your face the way he talks. It's sometimes upsetting, disturbing, distressing. All of that, we get it, we know it, we don't need an education in that. However, if it works, so what? Can it work? 0344 499 1000. Little bit of breaking news, reference Kanye. You've been following this story. The filthy anti-Semite and sex pest accusee Kanye West has been blocked from travelling to the UK because of his presence in the country would not be conducive to the public good. We're covering this at 2:30 this afternoon. That is the latest. He was hoping to pitch up for the Wireless Festival in July. They've gone, mate, you're a wrong un through and through. We don't want filth like you in this country, so you're not coming in. It's a good decision. One would assume that had the Prime Ministerial or the Home Office paw prints all over it at some level. Would this be a case that our government has reacted correctly for something, for once in its life? 0344 499 1000.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just before we go back to business, loads of calls, comments on the way, response to Donald Trump and what has been said and threatened. Let's just take a brief moment to have a bit of respite and tell you how you could win 20,000 quid completely tax-free right here on Talk. £20,000 straight into your own bank account. You can do whatever you like with it. Spend it, save it, splash it, whatever you want. Here's how you could win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
20 grand in your pocket. Nice work. Listen, let's go to the phones. Michael in Hertfordshire. What have you got for us, Michael? Good afternoon to you.
Ian, can you put me on the staff so they can pay for my calls?
Absolutely right. Yeah, don't worry. We've sorted it out.
About Iran.
Yes, go on.
Now, let's talk some facts.
Yeah.
Iran, if they did nothing, would become stronger. Now, do not people think they would start charging ships at some point in the future just to get some money in, and they'd be a lot more stronger, more powerful, so the blackmail would be even stronger? Do they think Trump's going to walk away from their allies like NATO did? If they walked away now, who would let them use bases in the Middle East? No one would trust him. They say you've started a war, walked away, and left us in the lurch. All these Arab countries want them to take Iran out for a simple reason. They have caused 90% of terrorism in the world.
Yeah.
If someone pays someone to murder someone and that person is caught, the person who paid him is also found joint guilty of murder.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been doing for 40 years. So people got to wise up. And NATO should have come out to back him from the beginning. Otherwise, Iran wouldn't have resisted so much when they saw...
Well, NATO are, of course, a defensive organisation. I mean, you could argue members of NATO could have backed him, but he didn't ask for any backing. He didn't want any backing, and he didn't tell anybody what he was going to do. So it wouldn't be entirely members of NATO's fault.
Well, I'm not saying they should have sent troops and planes and everything, just a backing of what he was doing.
The principle, the principle of decimating Iran, politically speaking, is a noble cause, right? I would argue it is.
Absolutely. But Trump's not going to walk away now, because look at all his allies in the Middle East. What will they think? At the end of the day, they killed 30,000 of their own people in 1 year.
That is true, but, you know, you could go around loads of countries around the world that have done similar things and possibly even worse, and we don't get it. We don't even talk about them. We probably couldn't even name half of them.
Yeah, but I'll bet you money that Iran's been behind most of them, and that's the point.
All right, on that point, Michael, thank you very much indeed. Powerful stuff. The rest of the West should have done more, but I think the rest of the West looked at this and thought, we don't know whether they didn't ask for our help. They didn't want our help. There was a tacit agreement to give a little bit of assistance, maybe too late in the day for America as far as the UK were concerned, because Mr. Starmer said, I need to ask some other people, to which Trump went, no, you're the Prime Minister, man. I know our system works different to their system, but, hey, you can see how that felt from Trump's position. Let's get a voice note on this from Trevor.
Although I can see everyone's worried about the war escalating in Iran, other than complete victory will be seen as a win for Islam across the Middle East, full stop. We really have to win this, otherwise the West is gone.
It's a fair point. Islamism, I think, would be the way to characterise the point that Trevor is making, but I take that point because, you know, when you step back, you might say, well, Trump's a bit mad and, you know, he's saying stuff that presidents don't normally say, and we get that's, you know, we know all of that stuff. That's you can't just keep going over that point. But if you ask the other question, would the world be a better place without Iran or the current Iranian system? We all know the answer to that. It's a much more powerful answer than the previous point about Donald Trump's way with words. And that is absolutely it would do. This is a hellhole, a medieval death cult running the place and scuppering its own region and the wider world. More from you coming up after the news at 2.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Welcome back. It is the home of common sense. So what do we got here? A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. They are the words in the last hour of President Donald Trump. He's threatening to really fulfill his promise to bomb Iran back to the Stone Ages if they reject his ceasefire. But here's the question. Can Trump, curiously, despite all of this and the way he's speaking, can he bring peace to the Middle East? We'll have more on that shortly. And great response from you, by the way. You can voice note or call us on 0344 499 1000. Also this afternoon, Border Force is testing facial recognition drones that are equipped with military-grade radar-enabled cameras over the channel to identify migrant smugglers up to half a mile away. Doesn't sound very far, really, does it? The Home Office seems to increase successful prosecutions using this technology. Increase prosecutions, that rather suggests there are already loads of them. I think there've been a couple. Will it work? I can't believe it would do. Facial recognition is, of course, predicated on the existence of a database where you can match up the smuggler with a wanted person. And the UK government has blocked Kanye West's permission to travel to the UK following controversy over his planned headline set at this summer's Wireless Festival in London. He ain't coming. The government has said, no, you're not conducive to the public good, you filthy little anti-Semite. Oh, and a sex pest in the QZ thrown in as well. Details to come. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Elaine says the Trump derangement syndrome is off the scale with Malcolm. Even if Trump cured all cancer, that man would say it's terrible and evil. What is the point in having a guest on who is so full of hate for a man they cannot even look at anything at all objectively? Well, I would say in his defence, Elaine, because I get it, he was very much over the top. But he is a former military man, of 40 years' experience, and he's not alone. And if the truth be known, perhaps not in quite such a hyperbolic or angry way, J.D. Vance, the vice president, who is penciled in, unless the Democrats conjure up a miracle, J.D. Vance is going to be the next president. He is ferociously against this stuff and ferociously against, truth be known, what his own president is doing. So make of that what you will. Cliff says, it's funny how they frame this as Trump's war, but as I recall, it was actually Israel who decided to attack Iran. I said this the other day, I think on Friday, to a guest. This is Israel's war, really, isn't it? And I was corrected by, I think it was either a guest or a caller, who said, well, you know, you can say it's Israel's war, but it's not really. It's really America's war. Divvy that one up as you see fit. So let's move then to this story. Border Force using these all-singing, all-dancing, funky recognitions drones. They will recognise your face at half a mile with military-grade radar-enabled cameras over the channel to try and identify migrant smugglers in small boats. Our Home Secretary, of course, big fan of facial recognition. Let's have a listen to what she previously said.
100 years ago, fingerprinting was decried as curtailing our civil liberties, but today we could not imagine policing without it. I have no doubt the same will prove true of facial recognition technology in the years to come.
This talk, that's what she said. What does it mean in reality? Let's speak with Alan Miller, our friend and founder of the Together Declaration. Alan, always good to have you on with us. Look, there's a couple of points here. I mean, we could probably end this interview in about 10 seconds. Firstly, for facial recognition to work, it requires a database with existing faces on it. I don't imagine these characters in boats are on a British database. And secondly, if I was a people smuggler facilitating this kind of crime, I would buy myself a balaclava for €75 on the Calais coast.
Well, that's the thing. You can see a Thomas Crown Affair type scenario where everyone just dons a wig or a mask or a balaclava or a hat. Any of that type of thing could happen. What's astonishing, Ian, is that on the one hand, you've got this situation where, of course, you need to have a database to make this work. But these things can be put out there as though somehow they're credulous, somehow they've got credibility, that they're kind of going to be a solution. You know, we've heard this with digital ID as well. That somehow you're going to use this technology and that's going to be the solution to not stopping something that we were able to stop before we had all this technology, something that to protect our actual borders, to have a situation where you prevent that happening in France and also you prevent it happening here, where you've got a naval force, you've got the ability to extract, to detain people, to deport them, a willingness and a commitment to it. We've got a number of problems, haven't we, that we've got a situation that in spite of this relationship with France, that hasn't been prevented there. That needs to get tackled and resolved. We've also got the issue of the ECHR and the Human Rights Act. We've got to address that. We've got a plethora of lawyers and others ready immediately to go to task to represent the people that are coming over on the boats. We've got a Home Office, many civil servants who are committed against much of what the people who've been voted in, who are both the Conservatives and some in Labour who are trying something that maybe not trying hard enough. So we've got to tackle the situation with a civil service and address it. But you know, the thing about facial ID, we've not had a proper discussion about this in public. It's been in no manifesto like digital ID. It's up and down our streets. The difference is that fingerprints generally, up until very recently, were only ever used on people if they've been arrested. It wasn't like just basically taking everyone's fingerprints. Now, with biometrics, that's changing and changed. But there's a big discussion and debate about that. Who should have it, for what use and why? And then just to kind of cavalierly say that there's fingerprints and then in relationship to facial recognition, we've seen that being pushed up and down our high streets by police on all of the public without any kind of discussion about consent, treating everyone as though they're potential criminals, with the idea, well, if it just gets a few people, that's good enough. That's why we've got the Together Four Nations Scrap Digital ID National Rally on Saturday, the 25th of September. It's at London, Cardiff, Belfast and Edinburgh. We've got people from all the four nations, speakers from around the UK, of which facial recognition is one part that people will be talking about within the overall digital ID infrastructure. It's not a solution. The Labour government has kept presenting us with these things that are so-called solutions to the problems we face, rather than just dealing with them politically and practically on the ground.
Yeah, and I have to say, my takeaway when I read this story, Alan, originally, obviously I've got a lot of strong views on the ineptitude of challenging the channel migration, which has been woeful. But actually, that was what I took away from it, was just the phrase military-grade radar-enabled facial recognition cameras. I thought, wow, my government owned this kind of kit. That disturbed me on its own, isolated from the story. I mean, did they buy these just for the channel? Do they already have them? And if they already have them, what are they planning to do with them? When did I vote for a government that wants to observe me from the skies with cameras? That, to me, was my takeaway, Alan.
Well, that's what's happening, unfortunately. We've got a situation where we have technology from a number of different nations, foreign nations, that is being harnessed to track and survey everybody. I mean, we've got 8 million directors who are being forced through one login to get digital ID. We're being presented as though it's going to be all about our convenience. They are using facial recognition up and down on the streets. We have never agreed to any of this. There's been no national debate or discussion. And we got a situation where more and more the people that are criminals just circumvent these things, because that's what happens each time these things come up. You get, for instance, New South Wales, they've got fake digital ID for driving licenses that keep being used. But ordinary, everyday, hardworking people who follow the rules and get on, and they're decent backbone of Britain, we keep getting suffocated, more surveyed, and these things happening to us. Alongside, of course, all the data breaches and all of the concerns that the state is not able to protect our information and our data. We constantly see reams of this, billions of data breaches in the last year or so internationally. And we've seen everything from what happened with Jaguar Land Rover to Marks and Spencers and Heathrow's across the board, the Afghan service people. And but we're promised this kind of illusion that this is going to be the kind of solution to the problem. We need a very physical and practical solution to the situation of the boats, and both legal and illegal migration. We need a conversation with the public about how that gets addressed about our borders. We need to address the situation with the civil service, and not try and sort of flannel everyone that this is going to be the easy solution. and, as you say, an honest assessment about what's happening on our high streets and in stores, but particularly by our police forces with councils. We've seen this kind of technology with low traffic neighbourhoods and so-called 15-minute cities. You know, these places were meant to be places where you could get something in 15 minutes, services and everything. But what we've seen is it's lots of surveillance and lots of fines. And the idea that you have an infrastructure where you have all these different areas, different government departments, your banking, what you do online, where you buy, how much your carbon footprint is, all of this observed by a government with, at the moment, what looks like a two-tier approach to policing and the judiciary. This bodes not well for freedom, for liberty, for privacy, and for democracy in Britain. And that's why we're saying, in the run-up to the 7th of May elections, make sure we, you know, all your viewers and listeners, talk to the potential councillors and say what's their position on digital ID and on facial recognition, and get along to the national rallies on Saturday the 25th of April, where together we'll have lots of people speaking from lots of different groups and individuals and representing people across Britain saying this is not acceptable and we need to scrap digital ID and make sure we always have the ability not to have to use it to participate.
Good work, Alan. Always powerful stuff speaking with you. Thank you as ever, Alan Miller, founder of the Together Declaration. There are the warnings of it. Just break it down. It's not even a nudge, drip effect, the kind of surveillance world we're living in. I mean, I know, you know, security cameras go back to, I don't know when the first security camera was put up in this country. Probably something like the 1950s. And then gradually companies had them outside of buildings. And then, of course, up to the present time, when you stick one in your doorbell, you can buy one for 20 quid. If you could probably buy a pack of them for 20 quid now, stick them up, attach them to your phone, everything's surveyed. So it sort of happened in a curious kind of way. But when you stop for a moment and really think about that headline, that our government are going to use military-grade drones with radar and facial recognition cameras in them. So they own this stuff. Now, you can argue, as the Home Office are clearly arguing, that this is all about security and border force, and if we can nab a few mugshots of some wrong-uns across the channel, what's not to like, that's fine. I don't imagine it's going to yield a mass arrest rate based on the existence of these drones. I just don't imagine that's going to be. She sort of asked, well, why else have you got these? Well, what do these cost these? I imagine they cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. We haven't got enough to have a proper navy in terms of money, but we're buying drones that can do all of this. Who are they going to be primarily aimed at for the rest of the time? Do they just sit in a warehouse until the next channel migrant crossing emergency? Why are they there? Who thought about this? Are they planning on flying them around town centres to catch bad people? Of course, the counter is always, well, it's just a new way of fighting crime. What's wrong with that? Done nothing wrong, nothing to hide. You know the arguments. Over to you on this one, 0344 499 1000. Paul in Southend makes the point that I made a little while ago. How does facial recognition work with balaclavas? Pathetic response from Labour once again. Maybe we'll all be walking around in balaclavas and wigs, as Alan just said at the beginning. David's in Exeter. David, on our original question, can Trump bring peace to the Middle East? What are you thinking? Hi.
Hi, Ian. No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just going to escalate further. I think Richard Dearlove, when he was on this morning with Julia, really sort of highlighted the way he sort of inverts everything and flips everything upside down and back to front, so he thinks people don't understand what he's doing. But I think we clearly do now. This is a serious situation, and from my understanding and reading the runes with senior military officers that I liaise with, I think things are going to get considerably worse. So on that, where your border control and this technology that they want to bring in, do they think that technology is going to spot Iranian Republican Guard? You know, is that it? Why don't they just shut the border? You know, radical concept in the context of war, shut the border so we can just get a grip. But sure. The reason I rang in, I wanted to really highlight what George Osborne had put up on his Twitter X feeds about, you know, how, and I quote, how does Britain fight a war? And I think this is, frankly, the height of impertinence where he's concerned because of the Strategic Defence Review in 2010. that him and Cameron conducted, where they basically set our military to act as a reserve-backed deterrent force. So what it meant in reality was that we were no longer able to intervene anywhere. And famously, this is where Sandy Woodward, the admiral who took the task force down to the Falklands, intervened and said, both in 2010 and 11, and then again in 2013, that Britain could no longer defend anything further than the Channel. We're still at that point now because Starmer hasn't advanced anything from that position, which is why we're in this trouble.
Do you think when... I'm always interested in that point because you're absolutely bang on, David, and you know more about this than me, but you know the Cameron-Osborne duo clearly decided to scale back on defence. Do you think they did this overtly knowing that America will always have our backs?
Well, there's an element of that, but what you're dealing with really is naivety. Where they followed on really from settings that Blair had left, and I think Blair, he's really famously sort of just recently stated where Putin was concerned in the war in Ukraine before we had these other fronts open up out in the east, is that he said, well, when he was questioned, you know, what happened with Putin? And he sort of said, well, you know, maybe I didn't see it or just got it wrong or whatever. Well, Cameron and Osborne were the same. What you're dealing with is they're inept, really, because under the circumstances now we've got war breaking out everywhere and there isn't, you know, our armed services are not, you know, Cameron and Osborne took out their ability to intervene, which is why we're sitting, you know, why we're in this condition now, in this posture, is because of them. Because if you look at it, this is the key bit. They took out all the capability, but it wasn't just the military capability, it was the industrial capability. So you've got a situation where BAE take, 20, 30 years to build a ship? The last time they made a plane was in, when Cameron and Osborne actually smashed up the Nimrods famously with the JCB. So, you know, I just... for Osborne to come out with that on Twitter, with how do we do that now, is frankly, you know, that is the height of impertinence. I mean, I just want to know what other people feel about this, because it was, you know, down to him. It was him that took out all the Harrier jump jets, you know, against advice. You know, they've just been refitted, billions spent on them, all British weapon system, and they went with a Panavia Tornado, which has got, as I understand from the experts, severe structural problems and no way of repairing them because the main spar airframe had got issues and the company that did that was no longer in existence. So we had a double whammy. But this is the level of ineptitude of these people, because the production timescales to actually make anything, should we want to actually use armed services and not the, you know, the soft power and the security services. But this is, honestly, Osborne has really got in my craw with this. How do we fight a war? Well, I tell you what, he's literally like the boy who weeds through the letterbox and then knocked the door to ask how far up the stairs it went, isn't he?
I love the analogy. David, thank you very much indeed for that. David in Exeter. Thank you to him. 2:20. Around about an hour ago, we brought you that breaking news that Kanye West has been refused entry into the UK to appear at the Wireless Festival this summer down in London. Now we are hearing that the festival itself has been cancelled. Wow. Now, I would imagine... this is probably down to the organisers showing a, what was it they said? You know, what happened to forgiveness or something like that, have a bit of forgiveness. So I don't think it's like, if we haven't got Kanye, there's no festival. No one individual is bigger than the festival. This must just be down, I think, the negative publicity and the fact that Kanye West has been seemed inconducive with the public good by our government. And Wireless had booked him and then argued that he should be forgiven, makes the festival still a target, perhaps? Is that the thinking behind it? We'll come more to that in just a bit. 0344 499 1000.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 2. A little bit of sad news. Well, it is sad news for those who remember the UFO expert Nick Pope. Now, Nick appeared on this show with us about 5 weeks ago, so very, very recently, but he was gravely ill when he appeared, and he acknowledged that during the interview. He had cancer, which he battled with, but of course Nick was known to most people. He was a man that officially worked for the Ministry of Defence on their UFO desk for many years, and then he went on to write and to broadcast, but I first got to know Nick because he appeared with James Whale on a very regular basis. For those who've listened to talk radio in all its forms for many years will be familiar that Nick was a very much a staple diet of James's show. He used to come on with us on the overnight show from time to time, but it was mostly known for being with Whale. And he'd come in late at night, he'd always bring a six-pack with him, and he loved to drink, and he was fun, and he never really dropped any state secrets. If he had any at all, there was always that question. But he carried on, and he was Mr. UFO, and he knew his terrain, he knew his details. You could never fault his knowledge of sightings. You mentioned Rendlesham, he'd raise you Jersey. He knew all that stuff. And he lost his battle, and sad to hear this, but his life was full, it was informative, he was always busy, and he was a heck of a nice bloke as well. Nick Pope, the UFO, known as the UFO guy to most people, has died after a long battle with cancer. Let's go back to your calls and comments. Lots to get through. Don't forget, we're also responding to that breaking news. The Wireless Festival has now been cancelled because of the Kanye West cancellation. Finn, our producer, reckons it's because Kanye West, who, let's face it, most people have never flipping heard of these days. I mean, he was all right, what, 5 years ago? Kanye West was a thing. My generation, us youngsters, you know, we knew Kanye in his height. I'd say he was a man on a downward spiral. You might argue otherwise. So he was told, you can't come and perform here. And now the Wireless Festival itself has cancelled. Would they cancel it because of one name? I'm not so sure they would. I think they've cancelled it because I've got two producers. I've got Alicia, who's a sort of part-time producer in the studio with us. And she's nodding, and yeah, it's definitely because of Kanye. As if, like, this pair know anything about Kanye. Finn could name one Kanye song, and that's it. Yeah, I know. He's on it, all right? I get it. Kanye West, joking apart, is a big deal. He was booked for the entire festival. Was that for 3 days? 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. It would have been a knock, but they could have replaced him. Come on, you know, Girls Aloud are gigging again. So Girls Aloud, I reckon, you know, I don't know. What about Cheryl, Finn? You know your music. Cheryl would have done it, wouldn't she? She'd have replaced Kanye. Cheryl Cole, you know, job done. The Kanye fans love Cheryl Cole. They would have sold it out in seconds. The festival has finished. It's no longer, well, for this year at least. Kanye West refused access to this country by the government, and an hour later the festival itself is cancelled. Make of that what you will. Let's go to Alex in Fulham. Reference Trump, or is it Trump and Kanye? Alex, what do you think? Good afternoon to you.
Hello, Ian. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
To speak with you once again. Happy belated Easter to you and your family.
Thank you.
Such fascinating topics, and I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to speak to you. With regards to Kanye and his being refused access, I agree with it. I'm Jewish personally. I've already been attacked twice since October 7th. There's a huge rise of anti-Semitism, not just here in the UK, but all over the world. It's a really, really devastating thing when, your one's culture, one's religion is literally being viewed as the be-all of evil. And, it's a really, really distressing state of affairs when you then have an icon such as, Kanye, or as he's now referred to as Ye, or Ye,
That's his legal name, by the way.
Yes, I know. He changed it legally, which I find fascinating in and of itself. With regards to
some would say moronic, but that's another story.
Well said. But, if you look at what a narcissist is, he is the epitome. I mean,
Sure.
So it was Adolf Hitler, the fact that he has been making such horrific statements, which then ties into Trump's concept of wiping out an entire civilization. I mean, it's Adolf Hitler all over again. I mean, are we going to have another Holocaust? This is incredibly dangerous rhetoric. These are incredibly dangerous things for people in such prominent positions with such great power. One has political power, the other one has social power.
Yeah.
Both powers put together, we're doomed for destruction. I mean, this is literally the human species imploding on itself. So I think it's correct that he's been refused entry. I think that Donald Trump needs to tame his rhetoric. He needs to be much more careful about what he says. So do people such as Kanye West. And I agree with you. He's no longer the same person he was. Everyone does change. Yes, I understand that with growth. But this growth is not the good growth, if you know what I mean. It is what creates hatred. It's what spews hatred. It's what breeds hatred. Both of their rhetoric is really what it continues to create hatred in this world. So I do believe that the reason why, is my personal humble opinion, the Wireless Festival was canceled, because like you said, anyone could have replaced Kanye. I mean, Robbie Williams, for crying out loud, Ollie Murs, I mean, Cheryl Cole, Cher, there are so many unbelievable artists out there who could have replaced him as a headliner. I mean, you too, for crying out loud. I love you too. I mean,
I thought you meant me. Sorry.
Yeah, well, absolutely. 100% you too.
Well, the funny thing is, we joked during the break that me and Finn, our producer, could probably do it. So it's quite timely that you...
I don't think you probably could do it. I think you can do it. I think you should do it.
Yeah.
But the point is ultimately, my humble opinion, the concert was canceled because of the rhetoric and what's happened with his hateful speech, his song, his campaign, what he stands for, and then you're going to all of a sudden, but I just want to share love, peace, and hope. Go fly a kite. Are you kidding me? Go fly a kite.
I love it. On that point, listen, great to have you on with us, Alex. Thank you very much indeed. Go fly a kite. Look, for those who don't know Wireless, it's essentially, it's hip-hop, it's rap, it's all of that. So I would pay good money to be sitting at the back when somebody walked on stage and said, will you please welcome Ollie Murs? Now, I don't think we've ever seen a London riot, but I promise you, is that reasonable, Finn? I think that might create a bit of a log jam on your journey home. If Ollie Murs was... Look, he was pivotal to it. I get that. Could you have replaced him? Yeah, you could have replaced Kanye West and hoovered up the publicity. I just think the festival itself is tarnished with anti-Semitism because they supported Kanye West. All right, it's in their interest to do so. I think there's a wider subject here when a massive international star like Kanye West does what he's done in terms of the anti-Semitic arena of life. I think that is far more important than you selling a few tickets for a festival in July in London. We are going to be covering this in a couple of moments' time. 0344 499 1000. Our lines are open. It's 2:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
25 to 3 here on Talk. Paul in Southend says, how does facial recognition work with balaclavas? Yeah, we made that point. It's a good point as well. James says, honestly, if you want to spot people smugglers, just stand on the white cliffs of Dover and look. Great point. Get rid of the drones. Just stand on the cliffs and go, look, there's one there. Where? There, in front of you. Very simple. David in the Cotswold says, when the only people who can afford a portion of fish and chips are the Starmer voters on the dole, then you know the country is snookered. Hasn't Mad Ed Zero invented a sunshine-powered trawler yet? Us crazy working urchins would like some rockin' fried potatoes as well. It's a very good point. A very good point. Let's move on then, and it's worth representing the... I mean, Kanye West won't mean everything to everybody, but in terms of performance, this is a significant artist. And when he gigs sell out. It's as simple as that. Nobody is doubting his ability as a musician. However, his ability as a overt anti-Semite is perhaps equal to anything he's done in his musical career. Now the festival, Wireless 2026, has been cancelled after the Home Office have denied the headliner Kanye West from appearing, deeming his presence not conducive to the public good. The decision to block the American rapper, scheduled for July, follows his recent anti-Semitic statements, including releasing a song entitled Heil Hitler and selling swastika T-shirts. I mean, there is anti-Semitism and there's anti-Semitism. I mean, there isn't really, but you take my point. Some people would go, no, I didn't mean it in an anti-Semitic way. I don't know how you flog swastika T-shirts and manage to conjure up a defence. Alex Hearn is the director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. I mean, Alex, this one is quite unbelievable in the... I mean, if there's an award for the greatest anti-Semite, I mean, at least he would, at the very least, be nominated, this character.
I mean, the problem is that anti-Jewish hatred is seen as edgy entertainment, I suppose.
Yeah.
If it's that difficult to even drag out a response over a Nazi, then it's apparent that he was booked because his Nazism was seen as commercially and financially attractive to the organisers. You know, don't forget it took the festival promoter, Melvin Benn, a week to put out a statement that was really quite insulting, saying that they were, in fact, helping this unstable man with Nazi tendencies by giving him a huge platform. And the message from him was this kind of moral lecture that you should be good Christians like us and turn the other cheek and forgive.
Yeah.
As if it wasn't a financially motivated decision, and as if it was his place to forgive something and he wasn't even the target for this. So most of West's fan base probably, I suspect, enjoy his work despite all this stuff. They probably ignore it and put it to one side, whereas some other acts actively groom their fans ideologically. So Melvin Benn, the promoter, previously excused Kneecap appearing at one of his festivals, saying, it's really important that they are here adding their voice and that they were great lads.
And it's interesting. Yes. I mean, there's various ways you could describe that outfit, Kneecap, but, you know, great lads seems extraordinary. And to suggest that anyone has a problem with Kanye West is really down to their inability to forgive, like a good Christian might. I mean, it's kind of... It's taking us for clowns. I mean, this is the intellectual level of a sewer. I mean, I don't even know how to respond to this kind of mess.
I mean, rejecting a Nazi should be easy. It's low-hanging fruit. But the failure to act swiftly and decisively enough in that first place by the Home Office is just added to the problem. How is it that sponsors were the ones to act first? Why are they the most moral ones in this saga? Meanwhile, the other acts and everyone else involved kept quiet. So if you ever wondered how collaboration worked, wonder no longer. And the problem here is that the Jewish community were always in a lose-lose situation. And they're they'll be the ones ending up paying the price in this when the inevitable backlash come from his fans and beyond. And so a community that had nothing to do with this decision to host him will end up facing the consequences. And now they'll say that we're controlling the government and bullying this poor victim. So we can probably expect yet another summer of hate. Last year, it was Glastonbury, wasn't it, with Bob Dylan coining a phrase we hear chanted when Jews were attacked. And there was a spike in attacks immediately after it happened. So there is a real-world outcome for Jews, and I am particularly disturbed by the callous behaviour of the organisers, Festival Republic and Haringey Council, and their total disregard for the Jewish community.
Absolutely right. And this was not a... as I said at the beginning, whilst there should never be gradients of racism, anti-Semitism, you know, it's all bad, there is such a thing of identifying, you know, overt, very public statements of it. Kanye West was clearly demonstrably guilty of that. How that didn't stop the local council saying, I'm sorry, this person cannot be, for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's anti-Semitic, it's racist, therefore. Secondly, this is not conducive to public safety either, if they wanted to look at it on those grounds. And I wonder, not that this is for you to answer, Alex, but I just wonder your views on this as to whether the Wireless Festival's decision an hour after his cancellation was to cancel the entire festival. Do you think that is down to, oh, well, if we haven't got Kanye West, we can't make it work? Or do you think this is down to the fact they realised that not just, you know, Pepsi and whoever else were dropping like flies around them, and they're just the ones we've heard about, that this thing was probably collapsing by the minute?
I think that they booked him for financial reasons, and I think they've cancelled the concert for financial reasons. Yep. And it's their own fault. You know, these weren't a couple of remarks. It's a pattern of behaviour repeatedly directed at one specific group, celebrating Nazism, selling swastika merch, and releasing a track called Heil Hitler and a working title of Gas Chambers. You know, where are all the anti-Nazis now? Yeah. And it was amplified to more people than there are Jews on the planet. So when did Never Again become Let's Dance to Nazis? Yeah,
and it was that overt. It was absolutely in your face. Alex, thank you for coming on with us. Alex Hearn is the Director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. Shirley Bassey has been one suggestion from Frankie as to perhaps who could reverse. Shirley Bassey did do Glastonbury. I should draw your attention. Look, I'm not an aficionado on this kind of stuff. I could, you know, I could talk a bit about it. Finn, our producer, is 24, so he's literally, what, 15 years younger than me. And even he's not, that will never not be funny to me. He's literally, even he's not an aficionado on this stuff. But who would you replace Kanye West? By the way, this is not a phone-in. Who would you replace Kanye West? We're not doing that. Just interesting that the festival itself decided it couldn't survive without Kanye when you could have put... I mean, Jay-Z is the obvious one that a lot of people are saying online. Jay-Z would cost you probably 10 times what I would imagine Kanye West would cost. Would that be fair, do you think? He's saying no. Not now. Really? Really? Kendrick Lamar, there you go, there's another one. Would probably cost more. So that would be a good... You see, I'm all right at this stuff, you know? I've got my head switched on. I could name you others because my little boy listens to half this stuff all the time. So I'm more up on this bizarre stuff than Finn. It's not happening because the festival is being cancelled and there is going to be no more Kanye West in London. No more... Wireless Festival for 2026. The question will be, is that them done as a brand? Is the brand tainted? Tony is in Lancashire on this very point. Tony, what have you got for us?
Hi, Ian. I think we've missed a trick by sending Kanye West home. The reason being is the Jews and the Israelis have got the worst PR machine on the planet. For the fact that the rest of the world is behind Islam, which is an evil death cult, over the Jewish people, just shows you the spin that they've managed to sort of whip up. against the Jewish people. The fact that lefties hate the Jews. Everybody hates the Jews. Nobody knows why they hate them, but everybody hates them. Because they're very sort of insular and keep themselves to themselves. My daughter's a police officer. Now, when the synagogues were attacked and the mosques, she worked them. She was on them, and she said, I didn't know anything about the Jews. She said, I met some of the guys that were there, some of the Jewish chaps, and I was talking to them, and they told her all about their history and everything, and she said, you know what? She said they were lovely. Really enlightened her, completely changed her view. But because they look a bit funny and they keep themselves to themselves, everybody just makes up their own little, I don't like them. And they've jumped on that.
Do Jews look a bit funny? I don't know.
No, you know when you see the Orthodox.
You mean an Orthodox Jew might, a Hasidic Jew might stand out, that kind of thing. Okay, I've got it.
Yeah, a bit of bad dress sense and all that sort of stuff. But had you got Kanye West over here because he said, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. How honest he was, how sorry he was, I don't know. But you could have got him speaking to Jews. You could have got him taken him to any survivors that there are. Take him to Auschwitz. Educate the man. If you can change him, he can change millions.
But you do wonder whether, somebody like him who is, I don't know, whether they knuckle down. There's something a bit conspiratorial about believing in all this stuff. Hitler was just, it was just a very, a bit of a naughty boy. He was badly misinterpreted, this kind of thing. The Jews running the world, all of these kind of tropes. There's quite a lot of that stuff out there, and I wonder whether you can imagine a sort of arty-farty, lovey, rappy kind of dodgepot like Kanye West, and he's got his own skeletons in the cupboard. See his former PA for details on that one. I mean, the list is out there. So I just don't think they can help themselves, and that sort of pushing what they consider to be pushing the boundaries, but actually it's just being a racist. You'd like to think that a black guy might know better when it comes to issues of racism, Tony, but clearly not in this case. Listen, great call. Thank you very much indeed for that. Something's just come to me, Finn, while I was talking to him. Tyler, the Creator. Familiar? All right, he's saying yeah. All right. I'm just saying, there's another... Tyler, the Creator. Would he have fulfilled Kanye West's shoes? Right. So, because Finn's point was you can't go on without Kanye West. Not that he's a massive Kanye West fan, but he was making that point. And I've just raised, and I'm a very different age group to Finn. If I can book 3 people like that, I know I put Jay-Z in there and Shirley Bassey. I think neither of those are likely. But I think they're better than Ollie Murs. And what was the other one? Ollie Murs and Cher. That's right. But who knows? It ain't happening anyway. But will it happen next year, I think, is the bigger question for the music industry and for the racial equality industry, for that matter. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk. We're going to be back in a few moments' time with, of course, the voice of doom. Before we do, however, it's another thumping chance for you to win £20,000. It's completely tax-free. It's right here on Talk. 20,000 quid straight into your bank account. You can do whatever you like with it. You can splash it, save it, spend it, however you please. It's up to you. Let's have a listen to how you could win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We were just talking about who could replace Kanye West. It was suggested that maybe Tupac could, you know, they do the ABBA hologram thing, don't they? What, Tupac live from the slab? Because that was the last picture, wasn't it? Maybe. I mean, stranger things have happened. The idea that Kanye West is irreplaceable is nonsense, okay? Don't buy into kind of some bizarre frenzy. Never use your age as a reason to think something is good. Someone told me that when I was about 20, and I thought he was a complete, when he said it. But I think there's something in that with Kanye West. I think there is a following that just, the following begets a following, and it begets a following, and everyone goes, well, how good is any individual consistently? If you could go and see Kanye West, Finn, you got a choice, or what's left of the Beatles, who would you go and see? Well, I'd say what's left of the Beatles. There's only Ringo, John. I think that might be it. There was a bit of an eerie sort of Beatles silence then. I could hear Penny Lane playing in my ears. Finn says Kanye West. But don't say that, say the Beatles. I think it might be you could probably see Kanye West for the next 30 years, couldn't you? But Paul McCartney and Ringo, maybe not. Grace is down in London. Grace, I'm sure you're a massive Kanye West fan. What are you making of it all?
I
jest, of course.
I don't know whether to talk about him or about the Iran war. There's so much to say.
Yeah, whatever you would. To talk about Trump, because that's far more on your page, I think, this is a man that is suggesting that he's going to annihilate the nation now of Iran.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday
in 12
at the
hours.
press conference, he took his misuse of Christian language to whole new levels, and it's really frustrating to observe. But Jesus regularly argued with people who were pretending to be religious so that they could kind of feign righteousness and get people on their side, whilst it was clear from their actions, the people Jesus was arguing with, that they weren't actually trying to follow God. And it's clear from Trump's disregard for human life that he doesn't actually want to do the right thing or to follow God, but he's using that language to try and win over some of his support base, and it's very frustrating to observe. I mean, the thing about Easter is that we believe that Jesus died because we've all sinned and we all need and we're all offered forgiveness. But in Trump's press conference, while referencing Easter, he seems to think that he can do no wrong himself, that he is entitled to do whatever he likes because he's on the good side and God is just going to agree with him, whatever he does.
Do you think sorry to interject, Grace, just for one moment.
Yeah.
Do you think, I did mention at the beginning, I just made a brief analogy that while Trump was talking about that, the Pope was talking about peace. This was Easter weekend. Do you think that was relevant to him releasing a fairly crass statement about Iran?
It could have been, but I was slightly surprised with the statement about Iran that you referred to, because I would have thought actually he would at least play along. I mean, most American presidents, even if they've not been sincere, would have, I thought, put out a statement to try and, keep the general public who are celebrating Easter on side. And the way he kind of disregarded Easter on the day itself. And then yesterday there was more talk about Easter during that press conference. I did find it a bit surprising. But I'm not a Catholic, but the Pope was right. It's not good for people to be starting wars. I really wish that Trump did care about the people in Iran, but I don't think that he does, because I don't think he'd be threatening to wipe them all out. If that were
well, it does sort of rather go against the whole original notion was an uprising of the people. Now, there could be no uprising of the people if you obliterated the entire country, including, one would assume, the people in it.
Absolutely. And it's not only the people who are in the area, although I'm obviously particularly concerned for them. Obviously, we've got the cost of living crisis being impacted here, but there are also other parts of the world where the situation is impacting cost of living far more severely than here. Yep. Parts of the, one might say, the developing world, sure. Although I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, are going to be more severely impacted than we are, because even more of their food and essential aid supplies are being impacted. So Trump is really, really impacting a lot of people, and he just doesn't seem to care, and it's concerning.
Indeed. Grace, thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. About to do the voice of doom as well. Just Angie quickly says Mr. Blobby would be more popular than Kanye. Yeah, well, perhaps. Maybe we'll convene a panel to discuss that very point. We've got the voice of doom. It's day 5 of the voice of doom. This is the mystery voice, but it's a politician you're looking for. Left wing, right wing, dead or alive. Who is this?
We didn't do that.
Any thoughts? 87222. 87222. You have around about 10 or 15 minutes to get a guess in on this. Here it is again.
We didn't do that.
And again.
We didn't do that.
If you think you know who that is, 87222. Don't phone in, just message only on that, not on X, nothing else. 87222. And if we get a correct answer, of course, we do reveal all on the other side of the news at 3 o'clock. If we don't, it rolls over to Wednesday's show, tomorrow's show, when we try it again. One more time, here it is.
We didn't do that.
87222. Lots to come in the next section. We are going to tuck into some fish and chips, or certainly the debate about fish and chips. It's all gone wrong. We've got the president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers with us, Andrew Crook. Looking forward to that after the news at 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome back to the home of Common Sense, coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. Now, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. The words just a couple of hours ago from Donald Trump threatening Iran if they don't adhere to his ceasefire arrangements. This is grim, but did he have to go that far to get results? Well, time will tell, but can Trump seriously bring peace to the Middle East? Your assessment of that. Details to come. Also this afternoon, as we've been discussing, Border Force in this country are testing facial recognition drones. These things are equipped with military-grade radar-enabled cameras over the channel to try and identify migrant smugglers from up to half a mile away. The Home Office aims to increase successful prosecutions using this technology. When they say increase successful prosecutions, that sort of rather supposes there's been lots of successful prosecutions. I'm not absolutely sure that would be true. And will a few drones make a difference? And Keir Starmer has said that Kanye West should never have been invited to headline the Wireless Festival and will always take the action necessary to protect the public. This is after the US rapper was blocked from entering the UK. As a consequence of that, the Wireless Festival itself has been cancelled for this year at least. Thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. This one from Gillian, who says, absolute hypocrisy of this government. Thousands of illegal, anti-Semitic, most likely boat people coming over continuously, but not stopped, even though they are a threat to us. Yeah, Kanye West correctly stopped. Interesting point. Gillian, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's move to this story then. Child benefit cap. We know, of course, that Labour, when they scrap the two-child benefit cap, workless households will receive an annual benefit increase of £6,000. Now, this policy is estimated to cost £3.5 billion. It's going to be funded by working and middle-class tax-paying families. Didn't Labour promise no more tax on working people? If you don't remember that promise, they did make it once or twice. Here's a reminder.
All of our plans are fully costed and fully funded. And that means no tax rises for working people.
We're not going to be raising tax on working people.
We will not raise taxes on working people.
We're not putting up taxes on working people.
Labour government will not raise income tax, will not raise national insurance contributions and will not raise VAT.
We're not going to increase tax on working people, and that means
that Labour will not be putting up taxes on working people.
But no, we don't think that we should be raising taxes on working people.
There'll be no additional taxes on households under a Labour government.
Let me be absolutely clear, we will not raise tax for working people.
We will not raise tax for working people on, well, let's make an exception on this occasion, and the national insurance equation. And I could go on. Lord Matthew Elliott is a Conservative peer. Matthew, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
There's always a bit of evidence, isn't there, on a politician, and in the current digital world we live in, you can never make it go away. I love playing that montage, of course, because it was so beautifully manicured by Labour HQ to make sure that every time they went in front of a camera, they mentioned this thing about working people. And it sort of blew up in their face fairly early on into their time in power.
It did. I think the Labour Party ahead of the election wanted to create the atmosphere, a bit like ahead of Tony Blair's first term in office, that they'd be economically competent and be fiscally conservative. And they had that perception out there. But of course, their record in office has been entirely different, not least on welfare spending.
Yeah, indeed. And when you have, I mean, the two-child benefit cap, this was arguably backbenchers doing their thing again, right? Because, of course, they had decided that this would go. They had some semblance of reforms. They weren't really dramatic, but it was to avoid the rate of increase, I think, as I remember correctly, in welfare spending. Again, the backbenchers like meerkats raised their heads and said, no, Mr. Starmer, you can't do this, while looking across at Angela Rayner as a hopeful replacement. And so Keir Starmer relented and he caved in and has caved in again on the two-child benefit cap. And this is not an insignificant amount of money. There is, one could argue, a principle attached to this as well. But £3.5 billion is a lot of money by any standard.
It's a huge amount of money. And actually, if you think about what the public think about this, about 2/3 of the public are against the scrapping of the two-child limit because of the issue of fairness. They actually believe it's fair to have this limit in place. And why should people be going to work, working really hard, paying a lot of tax, perhaps having to make decisions about not having a third child themselves, so they can't afford it, and yet seeing other people on benefits having these extra children.
Indeed. And of course, it should be said, and certainly whenever we talk about this, there is some confusion. This is not what used to be called family allowance, is it? This is not, you are still entitled to that. Even if you have 20 kids, you'd still get that money. This is about your entitlement to additional welfare when you hit the third child number. And that's really what this is about. And it doesn't seem completely unreasonable to put that in place. It's not as if families who, have a couple of kids weren't given plenty of notice. I think anyone who goes for a third child, I mean, frankly, you might need your head tested. I don't know. Anyone with kids will probably be testament to that to a certain degree. But so it's not coming out of nowhere. There's lots of notice of it. An individual couple will have their be fully aware that if they have a third child, this will be a consideration. I don't understand why, this is an evil policy, where that comes from, other than the fact that this is very much the kind of tune of the left wing of Labour.
I think the Labour backbenchers did feel the heat from their constituents, and that really drove this policy. So the initial government response of saying they should be in place was a sensible one. What my concern is that now there'll be a whole host of other pressures when it comes to welfare spending. In fact, we already saw it in the spring statement where the overall welfare bill went up by £18 billion a year in the spring statement. And against the backdrop where we've got a growing deficit, a growing national debt, where we're spending £100 billion a year servicing the national debt, can we really afford this? And again, this comes back to economic growth and the standard of living. We're in a situation where we've had very, very poor growth for the past, frankly, 20 years. People aren't seeing their living standards go up, and people are feeling poor because of that.
Just another story while you're with us, Matthew, and I'm about to use that phrase that I don't like using, in fairness to Keir Starmer, but, in fairness to Keir Starmer, this isn't completely under his watch or any one specific government. But I was reading this other headline that £850 million in benefits has been paid out to people who are no longer alive. Now, I mean, there's blunders and there's blunders. I mean, this one gets the Oscar, doesn't it?
I think it does. And in fact, if you look at the overall level of fraud and incorrect payment when it comes to Britain's welfare bill, it is over 3%. Now, imagine you're on a sort of more or less average salary of £30,000 a year. If you felt that £1,000 of that was being misspent or used fraudulently, you'd want to root it out. You'd want to get to the bottom of that. So I think the government, similarly, in the Department for Work and Pensions, should be putting a higher priority actually rooting out this fraud and error.
You'd think so. Lord Matthew Elliott, thank you, sir. Great to speak again with us here on the programme. The DWP paid out £850 million in benefits to deceased claimants across 2.6 million errors. This is since 2021. Less than half of that money is recovered. A couple of examples of that. They paid out £27 million that was sent for winter fuel payments, sent to 83,000 dead people since April 2023, despite being excluded from the main figures. I mean, these are big numbers, and I can understand it if somebody, dies. If somebody was entitled to something on a Tuesday and they die on a Wednesday, I completely get that the department might not, if you've ever been through bereavement at close quarters, there's a series of phone calls you eventually have to make to the gas people, to the mobile phone company, to the banks. And it's a pretty unsavoury little journey you have to go on. And one of them would probably include contacting DWP and saying, my nan or my mum or dad does no longer need a winter fuel. I can see how you might forget to do that. I can genuinely see that. So, yet nobody's fault in that sense, but recovering it is something this government have not got a very good track record on. Let's go to Billy, who's on the west coast of Denmark. Billy, good afternoon to you. Back to Ed Miliband.
He's totally delusional. He's obviously not factored in that the cranes that build these wind turbines burn something like half a ton of diesel a day. The trucks, that pull these wind turbines when they're heavy loaded is 300 metres to a litre.
Yeah.
That's the average, and so he's not factored that part in.
300 metres per litre. Man alive. That's...
When they're loaded, yeah. Some of them on site, actually, for a hard pull, it's down to metres to the litre. It's really bad.
Yeah. Metres to the litre, is that the lingo?
That's about how I'd imagine.
Well, it works, doesn't it? I mean, it's something you don't think about, that when people come up with these amazing ideas like Ed Miliband, as if they work autonomously from fossil fuels, and they don't.
Yeah, I'm in SPA Harbour at the moment, and there is 3 massive jack-up vessels, and they are flat out taking turbines out to the North Sea for Britain. And I don't know how many trucks are driving. The cranes that's in there, there's 10 big cranes, as I say, they're burning half a ton of diesel a day, each one. And then there's the vessels that move them, and I think they're €70,000 an hour to rent.
That's extraordinary.
It is madness.
These are big numbers.
All the trucks, and Britain doesn't even make one nut or bolt for any turbine. Everything is done in Denmark. Everyone talks about China and this. It's Denmark is producing them like mushrooms.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, it's a good point. Another little C-, shall we say, for Ed Miliband. Billy, thank you. Good luck with your journey. Great to hear from you, Billy, talking from the west coast of Denmark. This comes in from Michael, who says, seriously, taxpayers got to spend more money to find these boat floaters. We send boats out to pick them up. Do a Grange Hill song, Just Say No. Do you remember that? That was even cringe as a kid. Man alive. Mark in Stratford says, I think booking Fred West would have been more acceptable than Kanye. Lessons will be learned. Have a nice day. Good point, Mark. Thank you for that. This one from MG, Kanye West and concert. I can honestly say that I would rather watch a snooker or darts match than Kanye West or the concert. And that is saying something, says MG in Staffordshire. I would say, MG, look, I'm not exactly a young bloke in my 50s, so, but I don't think it's usually referred to as a concert. I'm just saying, all right? Just in case anyone hears you, they might point it out. All right, Grandad! And MG might only be 30, who knows? Let's go to Janice in Essex. How you doing, Janice?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I've got feathers spitting out at the moment.
Go on, for what? There's many reasons to spit feathers. What are the main ones?
Well, certain people that just can't stop bashing Trump without letting him finish the job. The second one is the Kanye West thing. Because we've let in 70,000 people over a year or so. We don't know who they are. Mm. We know who Kanye is. We know what he said. Yep. He has said he's going to come in, he's going to do his job, and he's going to shut his mouth. Now, the whole concert's been cancelled. I think that's lunacy.
You think it's lunacy they've cancelled the whole thing?
Yeah. Madness. We let people walk every weekend. Oh, the Ayatollah. Oh, Riverton. We can let all that in. And yes, a moment of madness when he is mad. But never mind, he's going to do a job. He's going to entertain loads of people that want him here.
I think one of the problems, though, was that the festival itself kind of endorsed him when advertisers were saying, we're not going to advertise at this gig because, you know, that your headline act is said some pretty, not just said it, he's had T-shirts printed, you know, the clues in the lyrics and all of that. They said, oh, can't we just forgive him? Which is not something that has been afforded to other people who've made an unfortunate indiscretion.
Well, I actually get it all. I've listened to the stuff he said, and it's absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. He is saying he's changed. Look, if the man has got medical problems, but if he thinks he's now on straight, should we not give him a chance? If the people want to see him, it's not like we're not inviting Hitler in, are we?
No, we're inviting somebody who's endorsed Hitler, though.
Yeah, I get that. But then you go and look at the marches.
Would you apply? No, I hear what you're saying. So are you a kind of, if I've got this right, Janice, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, are you a sort of free speech purist in the sense that, look, you can make a mistake, you apologise for it, we move on, we don't remove careers or work because of it?
To a degree.
Okay.
Obviously, it's got to be to a degree, and it depends on how bad it is. Now, you know, I don't know how long ago he said this stuff. If he's putting T-shirts to go to the wireless that has that stuff on, then he has no right. But if he is saying, that's all behind me, look, I'm going to behave myself, it's all behind me, I'm not selling T-shirts, I'm not going to sell merchandise and stuff, and I'll just come over, I'll do the free concerts, and I'll shut my mouth and I'll get on. Because otherwise you're depriving people that do actually want to see him.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when somebody's made I mean, I suppose perhaps what marks this out is that the error wasn't it wasn't something you tweeted momentarily. It wasn't something you said in an interview. This is kind of ongoing. You know, if you're having T-shirts printed up with a swastika on it, then this is a very considered part of your kind of thing, isn't it?
Well,
it's not a moment of madness. You didn't accidentally say something.
Invite him in the first place. They knew all this.
Yeah.
Why would you invite him in the first place? There's loads of people out there, other people you can invite for 3 days, 3 headlines. Why did they pick him then, knowing he's very controversial?
Well, that's a fair point, actually. That is a fair point. Listen, Janice, thank you for that. You do raise another almost dimension to this, which I think is quite an attractive talking point, isn't it? And thank you, Janice in Essex, for your call. You know, that whole thing of forgiveness if somebody says something a bit off, or, you know, they tell a joke at work and they lose their job of it. You know, I think we can all agree we've gone a bit too much over the top. Even if somebody tells you know, an individual member of staff, I don't know, is caught in the staff room telling an off-colour joke to a staff member, and another staff member hears it, it might be deeply unpleasant. Do you just fire that person instantly? Is it an instant sacking? Or do you say, do you know what, mate, let's have a chat about this, because that's just not funny anymore. And aside from anything else, you know, there are people that could be not just offended by it, as in pearl clutching, but genuinely. If you start to, you know, if you caught a couple of people in the staff room talking about, well, who'd want to work with Jews? You know, can you imagine working with Jews? And walking past is a Jewish forklift truck operator or something. Now, that's not him clutching pearls because he says, I'm offended by that. That's a bit more than that. But do you fire the two people talking about it? Or do you take it to what some would say, I think that's the point that Janice was getting at, you take it to a little bit more of a, look, you know, you two are bang out of order, you're going to apologise to him, you're going to apologise to any other member of staff, Jewish or not, who might have thought that we don't want to work with people like that. That's fair, isn't it? Is that the fairest? If you did it again, then fire your backside out of a flipping cannon. But should we not have a little bit more? I think the Kanye thing is just a bit more elongated and considered. It's almost part of his PR. That's bad, right? That takes it into a slightly more toxic territory, or unbelievable territory, frankly. 0344 499 1000. We're doing the voice of doom here, Finn. Let's do it here. Have we got a winner? This is the mystery voice. Have a listen to the voice we played you.
We didn't do that.
Who is this? These are some of the guesses. We've got Robin Cook. No. We've got Robert Jenrick. No. Dominic Cummings has been guessed. It's not Dominic Cummings. Rishi Sunak, Eric Pickles, John Major, they're all wrong. Somebody did get it right, but didn't leave their name. Or they left their name later. Now, under Ofcom rules, we are mindful at this point. The person concerned, I'm going to name and shame Donna in Plymouth, who got it correct, but broke the rules by sending what's called a two-message offence, Section 78D on the Ofcom code. And that is when you enter a competition, don't leave your name and then you leave it later. It's not really the spirit of this, Donna. As such, we've had to report you for a hate crime. I could just keep going with that nonsense. Well done, Donna. You got it right. Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary in the last Conservative government, was the correct answer. Day 5, it's gone, which means we have a brand new voice tomorrow at about 10 to 3. More from you coming up. This is Talk.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. This comes from James, who says, if you want to spot... I did read this. If you want to spot people smugglers, stand on the White Cliffs of Dover. This is reference Shabana Mahmood and the Home Office's new initiative to attempt to spot people smuggling kind of gang leaders, as it were, by flying some big military hardware in the form of drones with a massive camera and a radar attached to it. God knows what these things cost, to try and identify the wicked smuggler organiser. Now, great if you can do that. I think facial recognition does seem to is sort of predicated on the idea that it's matched up with an existing database. So if somebody isn't on the database, I don't know how you'd be able to say that's the person we're looking for. Secondly, once that story's out there, you'd all just wear a balaclava, right? So nobody would know who the hell it was. So there's a problem there as well. And thirdly, living in a country where our government spend a lot of money on drones that can take a picture of your face, it might be handy in a riot, but, what else? Where else do they go with this kind of stuff? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to the phones. Mark's in Lincolnshire. Mark, what have you got for us?
Hi there, Ian.
Hi.
Hi, mate. Yeah, what have I got for you? Do you want to talk about Trump? Basically, I think Trump kind of seems to be somewhat unhinged at this point. I'm not quite sure where he's going with this. He just seems to be caught between a rock and a hard place, if you know what I mean. He doesn't seem to know how to get out of this. He's almost like he's wounded or something, like lashing out. You know what I mean? That's kind of the stuff he's coming out with. It's really quite weird. It's certainly not how one would usually expect him. He's trying to sound all powerful and all, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do the other.
Yeah.
But instead of which, he's actually coming across quite weak. I think the Iranians know nothing's going to happen tonight. I don't think anything will happen tonight. But equally, I think that could be also the most dangerous thing, because if he thinks people are thinking that, he may well do something that we really don't expect. You know what I mean?
But I mean, do you... Regardless of... We can all agree his language is unconventional. I don't imagine he's going to drop a nuke on Iran, right? I just don't think that's going to happen. Are you disappointed in a president that speaks this way, or do you find it refreshing?
I do find it refreshing. I much prefer, you know, honest, open language, how the person actually is, if you know what I mean. It's one, I suppose, it's one of the attractions in it. Restore Britain. Rupert Lowe, he's quite similar. He's quite blunt and to the point, you know. He's quite handy at using a swear word if he thinks it makes the point that he's trying to make better, which oftentimes it does, you know. It's always going to come across as being far more honest, I think, as well. You know, whereas, you know, if you have the standard politician, it's very... I don't really care who the other politician is, really. It could be a Conservative, it could be somebody in Reform, it could be whoever. It's always actually quite robotic, because they all sound quite interchangeable, if you know what I mean, Ian. Yes. Whereas when you're coming out and you're talking like, you know, the average person talks, I think that makes them more approachable as such, if you know what I mean. More relatable, at least, anyway. I mean, I wish you wouldn't use the Christianity stuff so much. I'm a Christian myself, like Grace. I find it, you know, not necessarily offensive, but, you know...
When you say the Christianity stuff, I mean, are you talking about him suggesting he's doing it in the name of God, or are you... which aspect of it? Because I've never heard him say, we're going to invade Iran, it's what Jesus would have wanted.
I mean, he quite often will throw references in there. You know, especially, you know, over the Easter period where he's talking, you know, he's giving his message out over that. And then the actions that he's actually doing don't really back it up, you know what I mean? They're not really what I would... I don't want to say he's not a Christian because I don't know whether he is or he isn't really. But I think he can be bought because he's a businessman at the end of the day.
Maybe.
And money controls people like Trump a lot more than religion does, if you know what I mean.
When we get to this time tomorrow, Mark, the deadline will have run out. So he's talking about 8 o'clock tonight, Eastern time in the States. So that's 1 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday morning for us. What's your instinct telling you?
You'll have probably dropped a tactical nuclear weapon.
You really think so?
I honestly don't know anymore, Ian. Maybe he would. Who knows? I mean, they have some pretty big weapons, you know, just before you get to nuke as well. So, you know, who knows what he's thinking at the end of the day. But if he's on about wiping civilization now, it's going to be something big, isn't it?
Well, it has, but, you know, supporters of Trump will say what he's doing is matching the kind of language of the mullahs and the ayatollahs and these kind of people. He's matching that medieval death cult kind of way of speaking. It's the only language they understand, that kind of thing. I don't know if it is that, but it sounds like it might be. But all that has to happen is that if Iran had said, we wanted extension on considering the terms of a ceasefire, that would be enough for Trump to claim victory.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I mean, it wouldn't be a permanent victory, but he will say, as a result of my words, we have progress. That would, I think, be all he kind of needs. And then he'll swiftly move on to the next phase and perhaps this bit will be forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's just trying to get the best deal at the end of the day.
There it is. We will, we'll watch and see what happens. We've got less than 12 hours to find out. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark in Lincolnshire. Where is Trump going with this thing? I mean, it's quite alarming, right, to hear what is said. I think we're all working. Just think about how big this is. This is a man threatening to annihilate an entire country, not drop some bombs on a power station or a bridge. Total annihilation. A whole civilization will die tonight if Iran doesn't make a deal. A whole civilization. He caveats that with, I hope this doesn't happen. He's putting the ball into their court. But just think about what this is resting. A whole civilization. We're going to wipe out an entire country if they don't agree to these deals. I think we're just all working on the basis, well, that would never happen. And we can't qualify that either. That never happened, would it? It's not going to blast an entire country and kill everyone. So we naturally gravitate to that line. It's never happened, mate. Of course it won't happen. Well, we'll know in 10 hours' time. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk fish and chips in just a second. The nation's favourite dish. I know some people argue on that point. There is no argument, by the way. It's still fish and chips. But find out why it might be becoming more expensive as a result of what's happening in the Middle East. Coming next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 25 to 3. Lots more to discuss. More of your calls on the way as well. Now, Britain's fish and chip shops are facing a rising cost due to the skyrocketing cost of fuel prices caused by Iran's continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz. It's a truly international story, this. We were reading of one fisherman in Peterhead revealed that a tank of diesel to trawl for cod and haddock has doubled to approximately 10,000 quid since the war began. I mean, you've seen it for yourself on the forecourts. Imagine what that's like when you're using diesel on an industrial scale. This is hammering the industry. It's costing a lot of money, but where does the story go next? Let's speak to Andrew Crook, who is, of course, president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers. Andrew, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Nice to see you again. Listen, I mean, the fish and chip industry has been through so much over the years. But like a brilliant battered boomerang, you guys keep coming back. And this is just the latest instalment, right? Just as things were getting great and slightly easier, perhaps, although nothing's cheap these days, we know, along comes a war in the Middle East and has a direct effect on fishing.
Yeah, I think nobody expected this to happen with quite a 6 years, obviously, with the pandemic, which everyone faced, and then Ukraine and the cost of living. So this is just another thing that's putting pressure on the industry. And I think the fishermen, certainly, I know it's Peter Bruce in Peterhead that spoke to the newspapers. Yeah. They're having a tough time. They use a lot of fuel. That's going to have a knock-on effect. And also, we get a lot of packaging from China. So I think there's going to be an effect there. So it's just a matter now of trying to plan and see what happens in the coming weeks, and hopefully things will come to a speedy conclusion, but who knows?
Absolutely. I like to work on the basis, though, Andrew, that, you know, we are fish and chip lovers in this country. 3 days ago, there I was diligently in my local chippy, fish and chips for the family and stuff. It's still resonates. It's still a bit of a tradition. It's still something we love. I like to think, Andrew, that regardless of what happens, we always find a way to buy our fish and chips.
Yeah, people are still coming through the door, and we're so grateful. And we've looked at other options. There's different species on the menu, which helps hit a price point. So I try and we understand consumers are under pressure as well. And our biggest concerns, people's energy prices and fuel prices going up because that is what they've got available in their pocket to spend. So we are trying different things. And, as we're part of our communities, we care about our customers and we want to make sure fish and chips remains on the menu. And so far, so good, we've been able to do that, which is great.
Indeed. Look, I'm the grandson of a Grimsby docker. My first job when I was still at school was working in a chip shop, so I've got a little bit of skin in the game on this one. I was the only 15-year-old that knew how to batter a cod, Andrew. I mean, I think that was a badge of honour back then.
Yeah, definitely. I started in my parents' shop when I was 9 years old. I went to university and came back into it because I love it.
Yeah.
And it's a great industry that, we employ a lot of people. Sometimes it's the first time job. Quite often it's the first time job.
Yeah.
We teach them skills and confidence, and that role that small businesses play is often not recognised by government. And if government want to create growth and create jobs, then they need to support this sector, not just fish and chips, but the independent hospitality sector is a great sector to work in, and it does a lot of good for the country.
And it's a big sector that's really been hit on so many levels over the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I work with the Bangladeshis, the kebab guys, the Ice Cream Alliance, National Caterers Association. Everyone's saying the same thing. We're here to do the job. We're used to rolling the sleeves up. We want to work. We want to do some good for the country, but it's the owners that are being squeezed. And we see the doctors looking for a pay increase now. I can tell you my money's gone down for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I've definitely taken a pay cut for 15 years. And, at some point people are going to give up. So we just need government to work with us and give us that headroom and let us be entrepreneurial, which is what we do it for.
What has happened to the industry, do you think, over the years? Why has fish itself, just putting aside what's gone on in the Middle East in this respect, Andrew, why has fish just gone up in price? Have cod stopped breeding? What's happening?
Well, in the Barents Sea, where a lot of the cod comes from, because it likes cooler, deeper water, they've had to reduce the cod quota, so the amount they can catch. And in 2019, it was 1 million tonnes. This year, it's 285,000 tonnes. So and that's the supply globally. So it's a significant reduction. But we have got some other species we can try. I've got pollock on the menu here. There's hake. There's Norwegian saithe. So there are some other things that, if people are going to be adventurous, they're great fish. It's just people are creatures of habit, and they just want cod or haddock, which is what they used to. So we're putting these species on and letting people try them, and we can put them on at a better price point. So hopefully, in time, we'll be less reliant on certain regions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I may have mentioned this to you before. I can't remember, but when it comes to fish and chip shops, is there a snobbery among your own between chippies that actually peel and cut their own potatoes and those that buy in a bag of frozen from the McCain people or whatever? Is that looked down on in your industry, Andrew?
Well, certainly frozen, but there are pre-prepared chips. I actually set a company up years ago that supplies pre-prepared chips. So you're talking to the right guy there, and they're made fresh every day and delivered out to shops. So
that's a different thing, isn't it? I mean, but when you're just buying a bag of frozen that's got a sell-by date of 3 years on the back, that's a whole different ballgame.
It is, but I mean, there's some good frozen ones coming onto the market now just to give people options, so you never know in the future which way it's going to go.
You see, that was my audition. When I got the job in the chipping, we used to go in the chip shop and play on the fruit machine in there. We got to know the guy that ran the thing, and he said to me, "Come with me." And I went to the back of the chip shop, which was like, an Aladdin's cave for me. He said, "Can you pick that up?" And it was a sack of potatoes. And I thought, I've never picked a sack. So I picked it up and he went, "Do you want a job?" And he said, "Because as long as you can do that, you've got a job." Taking it off the truck and then peeling them, sticking it in that great big peeler, which I thought was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Wow. And then the thing that chips them as well. Wow. And that's before I went front of house. So I was essentially apprenticeship status on this one, Andrew. So there is a difference, though, isn't there? A proper fish and chip shop is wonderful. It's great British fare. It's something that, I'd like to think, I think most people like fish and chips. And if you're not a fish fan, there's loads of other things on the menu. You mentioned that you guys have sort of expanded somewhat over the years as well. Different types of fish. You can, usually get chicken now in a fish and chip shop. That wasn't always the case. And also the staples like your saveloys and sausages.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to broaden the menu. I think in the days of home delivery and click and collect, the online ordering, you've got to have something that ticks the box for all the family. But traditional fish and chips hasn't changed. And there is a move back to beef dripping as well, which I particularly like. I spent a lot of time in West Yorkshire where they use that. And that's my favourite. Haddock and chips, mushy peas, cooked in beef dripping. And there's nothing better.
Fantastic. Listen, onwards and upwards. Andrew, great to see you. Thank you for coming on with us. Really appreciate that. He's Andrew Crook. He's the president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers, runs his own fish shop too. Thank you to him. I still look, and every now and again, those kind of questions about what is the nation's favourite dish. People talk curry, they talk fried chicken, they talk pizzas. You know, we got stuff available to us that certainly when I was a kid would have been unthinkable. I mean, quite literally unthinkable. When I grew up, there was a Chinese takeaway sort of around the corner. I think the Hong Kong kitchen in Beaver Road is probably still there. Don't know if it's the same owners. But the chip shop was, and there were a couple of those nearby. There was Court Worton, there was Stanhope. These were great chip shops, and they were just... people didn't really... the Chinese thing, some people had Chinese. There would have been a couple of Indian takeaways, maybe one or two in town, but you had to go there. But in terms of what was on the, you know, in the parade of shops, where you've got a newsagents, you've got a greengrocers, you've got a co-op, you've got or a Londis, whatever, and you've got a chippy at the end. And it was always a chip shop that was there. And I think, yes, generation considerations do change appetites, and if you're ambitious with your food, as I am, I'll try all manner of stuff. But I think gravitating to fish and chips still wins over. Still wins, pound for pound, it still wins over. 0344 499 1000. Back to your calls. Donald Trump, of course, was the big theme of the day. Can he bring peace to the Middle East? Dan's in Liverpool on this very point. Dan, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
All right, Ian, there's definitely something fishy going on about this situation.
100%. Very good.
So, sorry about the pun. I think generally, if it wasn't for weak leaderships that we've had for the last 30 plus years, I probably wouldn't agree with Donald Trump as much.
Yeah.
But after everything that's been going on, I actually do support him. Someone who's coming from a half Iranian background from my father's side, I've spoke to his side of the family, and they say whatever needs to happen needs to happen. It's a little bit like World War II and Germany. We might not be happy with the outcome, but sometimes the ends justify the means.
Yeah. Do you think Trump should have been more supported then?
I think Trump should have been more supported, because I think what would have happened if Margaret Thatcher had been our Prime Minister at the time? What would have happened with Reagan if the same situation was reversed?
I do wonder if it would have been different, but I think, many people would say, in fairness, Dan, that Reagan would have acted different to Thatcher. He would have probably talked to Thatcher about this before he did it.
I believe that's true. And as I say, I'm not 100% supporting what's happening, but I'm more disappointed with our leadership and the way they've took down the UK. I know the word traitors gets thrown around a lot, but I can't think of a better word for these people who've been in power for the last 30 years. Yeah. And it's a sad event.
It is horrific. Spot on. Dan, listen, I've got to move just because of time, but thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. Georgina in Cambridge says, not just fish and chips, my milkman sent out an email about rising fuel costs. We are now being charged a fuel surcharge every week. Man alive. Fern, who's in Glasgow, says, you should have stayed in Scunny and had a glorious career at the Hungry Fisherman. Briggs' finest chippy, I should just add. I'm aware. But that's Fern in Glasgow. Maybe originally Scunthorpe. And this one comes from Richie, says, Ian, the new truth post from Donald Trump. This is the one where he's talked about obliterating a civilization. Is very concerning, particularly given that the president can unilaterally launch a nuclear weapon. The only thing standing between him and a launch is the individual carrying the football. Worrying times. Of course, it's where the button or the code is kept, etc. Yeah, very worrying. We move on with more calls in a few moments' time. Let me give you that reminder again to win that £20,000 in tax-free cash here on Talk. 20,000 quid straight into your bank account. No questions asked. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk. 0344 499 1000. Let's go back to the calls. Ben is in Essex. Ben, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Afternoon, Ian. This whole scenario with Trump and Iran, I'm just thinking, trying to think a bit logically about this. There's a lot of stuff being said.
Yeah.
I just don't think anybody really knows what's going on. He ran Trump hard on, no wars and America first and all of this talk of, wiping them off the and all of this. I think surely he's not stupid enough to just say flippant things. I just think that if you think of big companies, big corporations, there's always so much that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In a small room,
Sure.
the board and that obviously is going on in the White House, but we only get a percentage of that, and there's so much in the media saying this, bashing that. I don't know. Maybe they are going to put a nuclear bomb down there. Who knows? But I just there's so much we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there's bits I agree with, I disagree with. That's the debate, isn't it? But I just think we just don't know at all what's going on in that White House.
Isn't it? Don't you find it terrifying, though, in this respect, Ben, that here we are in 2026 that we're debating the possibility that in 8 hours' time a nuclear bomb is going to go off in a country on planet Earth?
Yeah, that is very, very scary. But again, we don't know what's going on. You know, I mean, I would love to know the conversations in that White House, the interest room, or whatever they call it.
Sure. Situation room, yeah.
I just think, you know, I see stuff, and I think it's easy for the general public to see something on the media, the mainstream social media, and think, oh no, this is happening, that's happening, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. And for Trump to say that, I think, you know, he can't be stupid enough to say things unintentionally. And he ran on no wars in America first.
Yeah.
So it does. I do think there's obviously so much we don't know. But I mean, I have faith that, you know, we'll all be safe and it won't be a terrible thing. But what can you do?
Well, I think Trump does kind of know what he's doing, Ben. But I think it's you know, he works in a very kind of one-dimensional place, doesn't he? It's about what he's thinking. I don't think he needs to sit down with a group of generals and come up with an idea. I mean, they might talk him off a ledge every now and again, but I think he knows what he's trying to create, and he's firstly a businessman, and his mind is in that kind of cut from that cloth. So that's how you would threaten someone. You threaten somebody in that respect. He's a businessman, and he's a shrewd businessman. Upset a lot of people in his time, fired lots of people, got rid of it. It was apparently a horror story to work alongside, in the sense that you never knew what was happening because only he knew what was happening. I don't think you can remove that from a bloke after 60 years in business. But we have 9 hours or so, 7 hours or something to find out. Ben, thank you very much indeed for that. We have got time for a word on Kanye West from John in Buckinghamshire. John, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Fire away.
I rang you up, excuse me, earlier.
Yeah.
I'm a Chelsea supporter like yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember quite a long time ago when Roman Abramovich owned the club.
Yep.
And we had a lot of, I don't know if he was down there then, but we did have a lot of people saying nasty things about the Jewish people. And he come up with an idea, I don't know if he ever followed it through, but he come up with an idea where he would pay people to go to Auschwitz.
Abramovich would?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, he did.
To re-educate people.
Yes. And I was just saying to your lady on the phone, I went there as a bucket list, and I mean I'm getting quite old now, but I got to tell you, I went there with my daughter and my wife and her husband. Yeah. And I don't know if you've been there, Ian, but if you haven't, you need to go. But yeah, it is.
No, I hear that it's educational, it's life-changing, and it's, by definition, it's incredibly powerful and disturbing, as it should be.
Yeah, because when we, as I say, excuse me, when we won a load of stuff, you must remember them days when we won cups and stuff. He did come out and say that he would pay people to take them to Auschwitz, and honestly, when I got there, you go through the gate and then. I basically lost it when we went into where they used to be the ovens. Well, I won't go into it.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
And just talking to you now about going there, it just... But anybody with them views, honestly, and they need to go there and have a look. And it's just shocking.
I would totally agree. On a lighter point, just to finish on, John, you said when we used to win stuff. I mean, there's an FA Cup just 2 matches away, right?
Yeah, of course there is.
I know. My other half went, wow, Chelsea won 7-0. I said, yeah, but it was Port Vale. So,
it was a pub team.
And one of them was an own goal of those 7. So,
Ian, just quickly before you go. Yeah. Can I just give a shout out to Frank Lampard and Coventry? I've started following him there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think if they win on Saturday, they're up. And let me put this to you, Ian. Coventry get promoted. Their first home game at home at Coventry.
Chelsea. I tell you what, we all love Frank Lampard, and, you know, if you ever wanted a team to succeed vicariously in that sense, it would be Coventry. Love it. John, thank you very much indeed for that. From football to a Fulham supporter.
Never mind that.
Still sort of in
we
the
all
ballpark.
love Frank Lampard.
We all love, come on.
You do.
Even
you do.
Fulham.
Chelsea were lucky. Port Vale almost nicked that game, I tell you. They just sneaked through. Anyway, Robbie Williams supports Port Vale.
He does, yeah. We were having that discussion at home at the weekend.
Not a great day for him. What are we going to do? Well, the Wireless Festival is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose. Why is he banned from Britain? You're just not allowed to be an anti-Semite, to have those views. I mean, I'm slightly uncomfortable about it, but I get it.
You see, the ban